Hi everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Endless Celts Podcast. It's been a while since we've had a normal, regular podcast on the go, obviously due to the international break, but I hope you just caught up with the Champions League rewind. Me and Tony done on Monday. It was good to take a trip down memory lane, but it's been a manic day, Gav. We didn't really come up with an agenda, but I'm guessing we do have a lot to talk about. In the comments, get involved as well. Fire in whatever you want to talk about. We'll bring it up. We'll have a debate about it. Gav, how are you? How's your week been? How's your time away from the podcast been? And then talk us through that top. I like that top.
Thank you, mate. It's probably the most provocative top for a Celtic supporter. The Peoples, the blue and the reds. I think the director at the time, or one of the main stakeholders of Celtic, he was kind of bullish about it, and he said, "Well, if the fans don't like it, I'm still going to press ahead with that as the main sponsor." And it must have been difficult at that time. Like I was a bairn at the time when this top came out. But I think it's iconic because of the controversy. It's ridiculous with the design. It's so out there. I also think it's quite sad that tops these nowadays, like Adidas and the likes, don't come out with like tops as ridiculous as this in terms of a design. But I think that's what sums up the 90s. However, the sponsor, the red and blue, will provoke people. I totally get that. But it doesn't push me away from it. So I'm embracing the Peoples tonight. Not the people, but the Peoples tonight. But in terms of this week, I think it's been a long week. I'm looking forward to the weekend. We've got Celtic and Hearts. It's been the international break, which is tough for everybody. Tough if you're a Scotland fan as well. I don't know how the North of Ireland got on. Maybe we can talk about that. Maybe we don't need to talk about that. But I'm glad the North of Ireland.
Oh, no idea who that is.
I didn't say Northern Ireland, but anyway, I'm glad that the normal football is resuming. It probably went for a break at the wrong time because we were on a high and the Rotten Mob were on a low. So teams have had the chance to regroup, and you need to kind of hammer on that momentum. Hopefully that momentum has not been lost. But from a personal point of view, I'm happy. And I hear that you're hosting people, not hosting tonight, but on top of that, hosting some podcast members this weekend. You've got some of the best of the Endless Celts coming to your door in Belfast. And now I've heard some crazy rumours, but one rumour I have heard that I need you to clear up is there's no doors. What does that mean? There's no doors.
See, that's a joke that I don't know where that came from. But in my apartment, I've no doors, so there's a lot of places you can go, but you can't hide, let's say. So for anyone who's struggling throughout the day, there's no hiding place. But yes, I am hosting. I'm hosting Franny, Anthony, and Willie. Tomorrow, unfortunately, Ross couldn't make it because his wife has fell ill. So our best wishes are with Ross and his family at this moment in time. Hopefully, all is well on that front. But yeah, so them three are coming over. A few other people joining that as well for my birthday celebrations. Don't like to talk about myself, but I'm turning 30 on Sunday. Yeah, I know. I'm going to get lots of grief here, especially by Paul McFarlane about having a tough paper round. But yes, looking forward to some celebrations. And I said to you, Gav, the invitation was open, but you said it was at the 11th hour. But maybe next time, maybe when we get over for Christmas, we all meet, all of us as a collective podcast group can meet up and have a few drinks for a Christmas party. That would be fantastic. But in terms of rumours, no doors. I mean, can't really confirm or deny that. If I'm honest, I have to just wait till they're over and see what they think, and they can put their findings into the chat.
No barriers. Look, in terms of like the no invitation, I need to pull you up on that issue. Like for a man who's sitting on a pile of stamps, I find it quite ironic that I have not received an invitation through the post. I need to pull you up on that one. However, congratulations on turning 30. I think whenever I was turning 30, whenever I turned 29, that was when I had the fear, because I knew that 30 was around the corner. But once I turned 30, I'm like, well, it is what it is, and you embrace it. How do you feel about that milestone? Do you have the fear? Are you okay about it?
No, I just treat everything a day as it comes. But I think that the last couple of years I've had has been absolutely crazy. So I'm very grounded. I don't really mind. It's just another day to me. Obviously, the celebrations are going to make it hopefully enjoyable, and I'm sure it will be enjoyable. A lot of drink, a lot of booze, and watching football and having fun with your mates and stuff like that. So Nah, it doesn't really bother me. Changing age, it never really has. I get what people mean in terms of obviously hitting these big milestones and things of that nature. I mean, my manager at work was saying he had a mental breakdown when he turned 30. So let's hope it doesn't go that way for myself. But, we'll park the birthday chat to one side. I'm sure we'll come on to some other topical conversations during this podcast. And as I said, anyone in the comments or who's watching along, feel free to put in what you want to talk about. We'll bring it up on this Friday evening. We'll have a laugh of it and a debate if needs be. But Gav, let's start. I mean, there's been people talk about road shows and tours of Europe and tours of the world. Our very own, well, I say our very own, the head of refereeing in Scotland, Willie Collum, the guy who likes to say mass and all that type of stuff, has been on his own personal roadshow. He's appeared on Super Scoreboard. He has appeared on the warm-up show with Sam North and Gordon Duncan. And he has also appeared in his very own show from the SFA, showing the mistakes and showing the stuff that the VAR's done in the first month of the season, which is August. Obviously, they're doing this on a monthly basis, when the next one will be covering September's issues. But just kind of, I don't know, just speaking before we delve into some things that he said and some decisions that are controversial. What do you think of this move by the SFA? I mean, Crawford Allen was a closed book. He never really engaged with anybody. I mean, you have to say kind of fair play to Willie Collum for getting these initiatives going.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'm going to speak for myself, okay? I'm not going to kind of cave into any opinions that I've heard from other people. I watched the Clyde One Super Scoreboard interview with him. Well, it wasn't really an interview, but he was on for the entire show, and I think he was only scheduled to be in for the first part of it. But I gathered that there was a lot of interest from the way that he was talking, and the two other people in the back, like Marvin Bartley and the other dude, they weren't even talking at all. It was all Willie Collum, and I think it became they realised how much of a hot potato it was that he ended up staying for the entire duration of the show. And from what I gathered of that, from what I listened to, I thought it was on the overall a positive. Again, I'm just talking for me. One of the first accusations that you can throw at referees over the years is a lack of transparency. Now, you're never going to get a full transparency, but this might be a step in the right direction. The fact that he's got the balls to go on a radio show and actually speak to callers who, you never know, they might have been phoning in for abuse, they might have been phoning in for an actual proper point, a proper conversation to have. And I thought on the whole it went well, the interaction he had with the callers. He's trying to justify the steps that he's making to make this more progressive and more open, and explain that refereeing has been revolutionized with VAR, and we're coming to terms with it. We're still coming to terms with it as supporters, and the footballers are still coming to terms with it, and so are the referees. And I think he's just trying to kind of give his own opinion about how things have went, where their aims are, what goes wrong and what they're trying to do right. He's not. People might accuse him of sugarcoating things if you want to, but I think it's a step in the right direction. You're never going to be fully satisfied. There will be a lot of bones to pick within the phone-in that he had, that episode on Clyde One. There will be things to talk about, to take apart, because we know that we like to hang on to people's every word and find a second meaning behind it. But I thought, on the whole, it was a positive thing. Again, transparency, that was one of the key words. But I've not listened to the other things. I know that he did a YouTube thing with Gordon Duncan, and they spoke about specific refereeing decisions. So there will be negatives to bring up, I'm sure. One kind of element was a caller phoned in and he said, should referees declare which club they support? And I think that is a clause that they have to do down in England. But if you think about it, in England, like, England's a big country compared to Scotland. In Scotland, a lot of people are going to support either one of the two Glasgow clubs. In England, you've got a lot of clubs to choose from, and maybe it's more of a valid thing to do in England, but in Scotland, it's like, is it that helpful to declare your allegiance to one club or another? Willie Collum also said, where do you draw the line? Maybe you're not affiliated with Celtic, but maybe your uncle's got a Celtic season ticket. Maybe your nephew is playing for Rangers Boys Club. Where do you draw the line? and people could lose their shit over it. I think it's a good talking point, but in general, to kind of surmise where I am, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking for as supporters. It's just that kind of transparency, being open, being approachable, and actually learning about what's going on in the VAR room, what's the decision-making process, what's the right ones, what's the wrong ones, and then obviously accountability for when a referee or a fourth official or VAR assistant may be wrong in that matter. But you mentioned the whole kind of declaring what team you support, and this has been obviously an issue on every Celtic platform and every Celtic media platform for years and years, for as far back as I can remember. And I think Willie Cullen turned into a bit of a politician when he got asked that question. He kind of danced around it and he was like, oh, we asked him to declare an interest, which is fair enough. But I think what you can say is when you have referees who've been visibly photographed in a Rangers supporters club, known to have season tickets in the past, and while you can maybe say, yeah, look, they're not going to jeopardize a professional career to give that team a goal or try their best to award their supporting team 3 points, whether that's Rangers, Celtic, Motherwell, Hibs, or whatever. There is and always will be, in my opinion, an element of bias in the refereeing system in Scotland, and I think you're right to point out that it's geographical wise, it's not as big as England. So is it plausible to declare what team you support, and then you have to move around and you have to take this game where you have to bring another person in? Maybe you're kind of, not saying you're going down the quality of referees, but the quality of referees in general in Scotland is abysmal. So the quality would get even further down the chain. But could you not throw the argument then in the big games, in the cup finals, in the league deciders, in the Glasgow Derby games, Dundee Derby games, whatever game you may want to talk about in this instance, that you import a ref from England or Ireland or Wales? I mean, they could cover the big games, and then you could kind of have the status quo for the rest of the games.
Right. Well, that was a point included in the Super Scoreboard, and so say for example, you declare yourself like a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan, that precludes you now. And then say you're good at your job as a referee. Say you really want to be a good referee and you are worth your salt in that profession, but you declare yourself as a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan, and say you get to be one of the top referees in your profession in Scotland. That precludes you from then refereeing a Scottish Cup final or a league decider or that sort of thing, because the odds are Celtic will always be in those big games, or Rangers will always be in those big games. So the odds are you're going to be a Celtic or a Rangers fan if you're going to be a referee in this country. And if you declare yourself as that, and if you say that maybe we should take that unconscious bias out of the equation, then that's going to mean that you could be the best referee in the country, but you cannot referee the best games, the top games, the title deciding games in the country because of the so-called bias. Willie Collin, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here. It sounds like I'm flipping over to his side, all right, but I think it's a good conversation. What was I going to say? So yeah, we're talking about unconscious bias, and I think I'm losing my track of thought. I'm sorry. But yeah, if you declare yourself as a Celtic or Rangers fan, then automatically it's going to stop you from being one of those involved in one of those games, and that's probably not fair. Oh yeah, the other thing was Willie Collum also said, you're in. Say you are biased, okay? Say you really want Rangers to lose. Say you're an out and out Celtic fan and you've made it to the top of your profession as a referee. Now you're going to get found out if you start showing proper allegiance in these games. If it's a recurrent trend that you always favour Celtic, then you're not going to be given the opportunity again if it's blatantly obvious that you favour Celtic over Rangers. And this is really unpopular to say in a Celtic podcast, but to an extent, I do believe it. If you blatantly favour Rangers over Celtic, then you're going to be scrapped from those games as well. Now, John Beaton, there's no denying it. He is a Rangers fan. But I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, under Brendan Rodgers and under Ange, him making calls for Celtic. And he's been called to look at VAR Sometimes he's stuck with his decision. Sometimes he's looked at VAR and he's again stuck with his decision to favour Celtic. Sometimes he's favoured Rangers. I think if you consistently favour one team over the other, then it's blindingly obvious that you're going to that you're biased and that you will be taken away. I think with the technology nowadays, with the more cameras and with VAR itself, and the increased scrutiny, it's tough. It's really tough to find the hiding place within this. I think it was easier within the 90s to get away with that shenanigans, and I firmly believe it was rife in the 90s and all the decades preceding that. But I think in our generation, I think it's more difficult. If you're an out and out Hun referee and you want to discriminate against Celtic, I think it's such a tough environment to get away with that as a secret agent. I think it's a tough place. I know that we've all got a Celtic paranoia and it's justified to an extent, but I think it's a tough hiding place to consistently be biased against one team in this modern age.
Yeah, I do agree with you in an instance to what you're saying, but I think we've seen. I mean, one thing I do hope with this VAR kind of introduction of these panel shows and Willie Collin being a bit transparent is you see the pattern of assistance that was seen for maybe 2 to 3 years of Rangers getting penalty kicks every game. It was a laughing stock at one point, and the handball rules changed. Let's see if that remains consistent. And Michael Mitchell came in earlier in the comments asking us both what's our opinion on was it Dom Robertson was refereeing the Rangers Ross County game, and there was a breakaway moment with a Ross County player, and Tom Lawrence was tracking back and he was shouting, "Don't tackle there, Tom, don't tackle there, Tom." Tom proceeds to tackle, doesn't win the ball, but the referee gives the shout of he's got a massive touch of the ball. It leads to a breaking opportunity and Rangers score. Now look, I've heard the argument that this is heard in grassroots football, this is heard in stadiums throughout the world and things of that nature. And if I speak from my own experience, like I played football up until I was around 23, 24, not a really high level. You're talking probably amateur at best. I mean, like you're five leagues below the National League over here in the north of Ireland. So I never once got coached by a referee throughout the game. A referee didn't tell me instructions. I would actually find it a bit weird if that happened. But I have heard, and look, people are well more experienced than me in football, and I've seen it on Twitter, people saying this happens all the time. What's your feeling? I mean, it was very, very, let's say, vocal. It was shouting, and all was missing from that Rangers goal was a celebration by that referee, in my opinion. I just thought it was wild.
Right, okay, so that particular segment, I think whenever the referee said, "Oh, he's got a touch of the ball," he clearly never got a touch of the ball. He got a chunk of the opposition player. So the decision by VAR and the lack of intervention by VAR was criminal, absolutely criminal. But to go back to the original point, the actual coaching, a referee saying, warning players, don't do that. So the one thing I would draw your attention to, and you'd probably agree with this, tell me if you don't, but you know how whenever a corner is about to be taken, and you've got like attackers and defenders jostling for position, and they're getting close to each other, and they're like tugging on each other's shirts. How many times have you seen? It's maybe more prevalent in the English Premier League, where it's a higher degree of refereeing and stuff like that. But how often have you seen the corner being delayed because the referee saying, "I fucking told you, don't do that, stop doing that. You need to get this right before the corner can take place"? That happens so often that the referee is like turn off the attacker, turn off the defender, and then like he just says, "No, don't take the corner. Come out. I'll talk to you both." And it's so condescending, and you're like, "Why are you holding the game up for this?" But that is a clear example of referees. I don't think the word is coaching, but it's dialogue, ongoing dialogue. And when I hear it from people on Twitter, like former professionals and people on the Super Scoreboard talking about it, they say that it is very, very commonplace. Even Gordon Dale, going back to whenever he was playing in like the 80s and the 90s, he said it's very, very commonplace for referees to be talking to players during the game. So I don't think that that's a myth. To dismiss that, I don't think it's founded. But But that particular example of the way that particular one, when the Rangers player brought down the opposition player, I found that was, I don't know what you call it, an exaggeration, but it seemed like it seemed outrageous. He was like, don't tackle him, don't tackle him. It's almost like he didn't want to tackle him because they didn't want Rangers to concede a free kick. But what was even more galling was the fact that he didn't actually bring it back, because Rangers went on to score a goal from that. A total criminal piece of play from a refereeing point of view, from a VAR point of view. But in terms of the dialogue, I think it exists there. I don't refute that at all. I can't speak from first-hand experience. I gave up playing 11-a-side football at the age of like 12, 13. I think it happens. We're just going to have to. I don't see a big problem with it. That example, yeah, it was criminal. But in general, referees talking to players, telling them not to do that because they know they're going to have to award a foul. I don't think it's giving an advantage to one player or another. I think it's just how they manage their games. Don't see it as a big issue.
I mean, the correct decision, like you said, would be to award the foul, but that never happened. And obviously, we know the rest of that story. But another incident that was in the VAR discussion, I remember it being a big talking point when Celtic had their first game of the season, was the Kyogo. The quick free kick, Matt O'Reilly over the wall. Kyogo runs in, tips the ball past Robbie McCrory, and then McCrory proceeds to then wipe Kyogo out of play in the penalty area, and it should have been a penalty kick, and I think Willie Collum confirmed this as well. Listen to the audio back from that. I found it, I don't know if you've heard it, Gav, have you, before we continue? Have you heard the audio from this?
I have.
Yeah. So I found that really, now you say galling, it was actually, it was unbelievable, the actual decision and conclusion that they gave to the referee at the time. I think the referee was Clancy, I believe, and he said he didn't have a good angle. And I think it was Andrew Dallas, whoever it may be, and VAR was saying, I think Robbie McCrory made himself big and he didn't move, blah, blah, blah. Various different angles. And the quickest conclusion in any of the VAR decisions on the show happened that day, where he was like, McCrory stood big, play, just keep the play going, no penalty kick. That's the kind of summary of that. Found that incredible. And you're talking about taking accountability. And another part of the super scoreboard thing for me was, what's the punishment? And Willie Collum didn't like to say that word, which is fair enough. Maybe don't want to demoralise referees to an extent where their confidence is so low. But when you're getting blatant decisions wrong like that, and someone put in the comments earlier that this is going to cost a title, it's going to cost a relegation, it's going to cost something really big in the future, and it already has previously, but we're talking about this season. How can a VAR official, now these are dedicated now VAR officials who are in that room as their full-time job, how can you look at that and say that's not a penalty kick? I found that astonishing.
I'll take your word for it that they're full time. I wasn't aware of that.
I don't mean full time. I mean they're, as in they're not a referee no more. They're dedicated VAR officials. Yes. That's what I mean.
I get you. Okay, that's their dedicated job for a football game as a VAR official. I think that particular incident was ridiculous. The keeper, I was there at the game at Parkhead. The keeper, whenever you listen to VAR, the VAR spokesperson said that he just made himself big. But when you look at it, he took at least 3-4 steps in front and then shuffled a little bit to the right. And obviously, he caught Kyogo. He never got the ball at all. Kyogo got the ball first, and Kyogo would have been in on goal. I felt it was a penalty. I'm sure you do. And Willie Collum has subsequently agreed that it should have been a penalty. So the VAR guy, was it Andrew Dallas? I assume it's Andrew Dallas. I don't know.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think Andrew Dallas is the one to watch out for. He's, tainted by the sins of the father, shall we say. And the best part is, he's like faceless. He's in a fucking burger van or something like that. You don't see him, you know what I mean? He's locked away. You don't know what he's up to. He could be smoking a big cigar saying, "Fuck you, Tim's," you know what I mean? You're not getting this one. Not today. It could be like that, or it could be like fully professional and saying, "I don't think this is the right call." But I don't quite trust Andrew Dallas. I think he was obviously wrong in that regard. Willie Collum has disagreed. So I guess the other question is, comeuppance, what's the punishment? look, Celtic fans and Rangers fans had their way, then Willie Collum would have been banished long ago by Rangers fans and by us, because he's had a few shockers against us, and of course, Bobby Madden, and plenty others. We would have banished all the top referees if we had our way. But you've got Willie Collum was talking about, look, if a referee keeps making mistakes, then you need to protect them and put them down to the lower division for maybe a couple of weeks to regain their confidence, to retrain them, to show them where they went wrong, and then bring them back to those high-profile games. I think that is probably the right way to go about it. What else would you do? You don't sack them, because everybody, even the top referees, are going to have clangers. They're going to make big mistakes. So if you sack a top referee for a couple of bad consecutive decisions, then you're not going to make it a fertile ground to recruit the next good referee. And we probably don't even respect that, recruiting good referees, because we're all focused about footballers, and we have mistrust against referees. But the game wouldn't function without referees, if we're being honest. If you got rid of the top referees and you brought in Joe Bloggs from the street, they'd make an arse of it, and you'd bring back that biased pun, you know what I mean? There needs to be a wee bit of balance here. They're going to make mistakes, but what are you going to do with them? You know what I mean? Like, if they're that bad, then of course they're not going to be worth their salt, and they will get demoted, and they'll never get thrown back into these games. But a lot of them it's just human error, I think. Maybe I'm being too diplomatic about that, but there's referees that we don't like. There's referees that they don't like. But in the last game, beaten in Celtic and Rangers, we beat them 3-0 at Parkhead. Now, we were going into that game thinking we are far better on paper than them. We're going to beat them. The only thing that can go against us, perhaps, is a freak nature, or the referees conspiring against us. But I don't think there was any kind of, apart from the offside, the goal that was ruled offside, apart from that, there wasn't any major sticking points. I guess my point is, we kind of build up a wee bit too much. Sometimes the referees aren't as bad as what we fear they are.
I think with Paul McFarlane, and I would say in this situation, Gav, you need more red wine in you. You're being far too diplomatic tonight, Big Chief. I don't know what you're drinking. What is it you're drinking tonight?
Look, Matt, it's cheap as fuck, okay? It's really cheap. It's like a Shiraz.
Box wine?
Box wine, man. Box wine.
Yeah. I've had many a box wine, but white wine, I'm not really into my red, but yeah. And maybe there's a reason. Not a sophisticated enough palate or something, Gav, but who knows? But you talked about that one contentious decision. That wasn't even spoken about once on these particular shows that Willie Collum was on. But I do hold out hope that it will appear on the next on the next VAR show that the SFA produced. That's what we'll have to wait and see. But what did you think as well? By the way, I'm actually enjoying this chat tonight. We were wondering about the agenda tonight, but it's actually quite good getting into this VAR stuff. But what did you think of Dales in there giving you a lot of praise? Gav's a fucking legend of the podcast scene. Love listening to his constructive nonsense. He follows it up. But what did you think about him talking about the improvements that they're looking to make in the future? Talking about that he knows that the IFA are implementing, talking to the stadium at certain points of when decisions are being made, but they need the funding. Do you think that's a big thing? Do you think it's like, we're talking about the full-time aspect of things, and yes, they're not full-time, but would it improve if they were? And then if the clubs come up with, let's say, I think it was 1.2 or 1.3 million that Willie Collum was discussing for these improvements to be in place, and we all know we have the bargain version of VAR. If this all improved finance-wise, and then you put the referees in a full-time condition, do you think the standard would improve, or do you think it'd be a wasted investment?
No, I think if you had the money to throw at it and to make the referees full-time, absolutely, the standard would improve. I've got no doubt about that. But did you notice on that Super Scoreboard, every time a caller phoned in and asked a question, Willie Collins' immediate response would be, "That's a really good question," and it sounded like him going back to because
To give
he's
him
like
time to think.
yeah, like he's like a religious education school teacher. That was his trade. You know that was his job, and that sounds like a good way to encourage even the most stupid of children. You know, just to keep asking questions. I feel like you always say that's a good question. You would always say that to the callers. However, besides that, some of the questions were very good. So one caller didn't phone in and say, well, what if you were able to increase the funding? Where would you get that from? And what if you were able to make the referees full time? I totally agree. It would make the refereeing more efficient. No doubts about that. But I think Willie Collum did say that it would cost about 1.5 million to I think it was about the communication part. So to one of the callers was talking about refereeing in rugby, and whenever the referees are mic'd up and they're able to kind of justify their decisions, you know, in real time. And Willie Collum said, "Look, that's a great point. It really is." I think it was a kind of politician's answer, but I think Willie Collum realizes that no other league in football, in world football, is doing that. So the chances that the Scottish football are going to be the guinea pig for that sort of project, that is pie in the sky. It's never going to happen. We're kind of in like the backwater of that sort of thing. We're one of the last leagues in the world to actually start implementing VAR. So I think we're not going to be at the forefront of these projects.
Yeah, I think so. And look, I want to address one thing before Dale Boys asked to come on, but my phone is in the other room and I'm on a tablet, so I can't physically send the link. So I do apologise. It's not we're being ignorant. I just can't physically send the link. Otherwise, I'll have to come off and send it and things of that nature. So we're not ignoring the request, putting it out there. We're not being thing, but yeah, that's why my phone's in the other room. But yeah, in terms of that, I mean, Gav, if you can, feel free. But what were you gonna say there?
Well, I think if you've got the funding, then we could make VAR and the refereeing far more efficient, far better, to make the referees full time. The other thing Willie Collum said was like, if you make the referees full time, you need to acknowledge that they've got a full time job right now, and that they're doing this refereeing part time. Some of them have got good jobs, and they might be making a loss if they had to give up their full time job to go full time as a referee. So I think that's another thing to bear in mind. Look, there's a lot of things to improve upon with refereeing, but even the other thing is like the amount of cameras that we've got in the stadium. I think it's like 6, and that's like the bare minimum that you need to implement VAR. Whereas in English Premier League, you've got far more than just your bare minimum 6 cameras. So you've got a better vantage point to make those offside calls and things like that, and to get the decisions right. I think we're selling ourselves short. But on the other side, do we have the budget to up that? Celtic pay the most out of all the clubs in the league right now for VAR, which I get. You know, we're top of the pyramid in terms of the food chain. I don't really quibble with that. It's just like maybe 100 grand more than Rangers, for example. I don't really quibble with that. With all the money that we've got, we can deal with that. It's not much of an injustice. If you make every other club have to pay for it and like an egalitarian system, that'd be ridiculous. Look, there's ways to improve it, but I don't know. We just need to work on what we can work on. The budget is one thing, but let's work on the basics.
Yeah, and the basics is probably the most fundamental thing that they get wrong on a daily basis. But to move the conversation along, obviously we're back in domestic action. We had a long couple of weeks, international break in between. Greg Taylor, James Forrest didn't take part in the Scotland games. Obviously, Cal McGregor, he is retired. AJ played one for Japan, but got took off because he felt a tight hamstring. But thankfully, he seems to be okay. And one player I did want to touch upon was Reo Hatate. And for some reason, they're starting to get that lovely glass of red that's poured. For some reason, I don't know why, but look, I may be wrong. Red Scotland, I may be wrong. I don't think Reo Hatate is Brendan Rodgers' player. Every time he speaks about it, he's talking about consistency and improving his levels. And he wasn't, when he was asked the question today about him traveling to Japan and did he feel sorry for him? And look, I'm not like expecting Rodgers to fucking lick his arse and tell him everything's going to be okay. But for me, he was just quite dismissive. Do you know what I mean? He didn't really back up Reo Hatate's qualities when he said that maybe we're disrespecting the quality of the Japan national team. And let's be fair, they do have some cracking players within their national team. And then he mentioned straight after about consistency, and hopefully he takes as a motivation for the next 6 games to improve and try and get in that squad for the future. But just never quite got the feeling that maybe him and Rio match up. I know they're cuddling after the games and they're talking and that, and everyone loves that. I love it too. But do you know what I'm saying? Or am I way off piece for that?
Well, I think Reo Hatate responds to. Do you remember you interviewed Dan Orlowitz, didn't you? Who was like the American, an American national, but based in Japan. And a lot of the Celtic podcasts interviewed Dan Orlowitz. We did it in the Jungle Gyms. You did it for this podcast. And Dan Orlowitz, one of the comments that I took away from it was he said that Reo Hatate is a very, very gifted footballer, but he said, be careful with his personality, with his mentality. If you give him the love and affection, then he will flourish. And I think from our fans' point of view, we certainly do that. We recognise the talent that he has. I think what Dan Orlowitz was implying was that he needs to find the right type of manager who's going to put his arm around him. And you would think that with Brendan Rodgers, he is that, because if you compare it to Ange Postecoglou, Matt O'Reilly and other people spoke about it, that Postecoglou was very much at arm's length. Like, he wouldn't sit with the players during lunchtime and stuff like that. The famous story about a plane journey where one player had to sit with the manager, Postecoglou, and it was the worst plane ride of his life because there was no dialogue, no conversation at all. It was awkward as fuck. Whereas with Brendan Rodgers, Matt O'Reilly spoke about it, that Brendan Rodgers is far more engaged and he will sit with the players. He will put an arm around you. He's not... Criticism and shouting is not beyond Brendan Rodgers, without a doubt. He's capable of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think Brendan Rodgers is a far more appropriate manager to bring out the best in Reo Hatate. But the ironic thing is, if we think about it, at the start of their relationship, I think it was the St Johnstone game at Parkhead last season, David Turnbull started in the kind of number 10 position. Reo Hatate was benched. And it took I think it might have took till Turnbull got injured, but Hatate eventually got back into the team. But I think the ongoing theme of that season last year was Brendan Rodgers trying to drill into Hatate to be more risk averse, and that's what Hatate. Sometimes, if you look at it statistically, he might not be a good player, but on the eye, he looks a fantastic player. He gets the bums off the seats. He makes the eye-catching passes. But if you analyse it statistically, a lot of the times he makes stupid passes. He gives away the ball in bad positions in the pitch and things like that. If you watch the Celtic podcast, I think it's Celtic Underground. They do like a deep dive in terms of those statistics. Wherever you think like a player's doing well, but they can actually tell you statistically he's not doing very well. And I think that last season was all about an education for Reo Hatate and for Brendan Rodgers to say, look, you're a very, very gifted player. You can take the ball in a half turn like nobody else in our squad can. You can do damage to a squad, to an opposition team like nobody else can. But you need to channel your talent in the right way. Because we saw, I think it was in the Netherlands in the Champions League game, Hatate was giving away the ball in really daft places. And that's where we needed our big game players to stand up and make an impact. And Hatate fell short of that. And so this season, this is all about Hatate doing what he can do best, but at the same time, mitigating his mistakes. And I think it's a thin line where you're suppressing some of his creativity, Hatate. He wants to play on impulse, But Brendan Rodgers is saying, be careful of what you're doing. And I guess that's a danger. Maybe he's stifling Reo Hatate. I think that as much as I love Reo Hatate, I think this might be perhaps a reason that a team like Brighton might not buy Reo Hatate. I think Brighton, that type of team who we thought that would fit the profile for Reo Hatate, I think with Hatate's mistakes sometimes, I think that might stop him from going to the next level. And I hope I'm wrong. I want him to be the next £25 million player. But in November the 21st this year, he's going to be turning 27. You know, is he going to miss his big ticket to go to a big team? You know, he's got a shed load of talent, but football IQ, maybe the guy is missing. But I still love him to bits. I love him to bits, and I'd be gutted if he gets benched for the game tomorrow, because he's an entertainer, and that's what we love as Celtic fans.
Yeah, and again, the comments seem a bit divided. People are talking about his work ethic off the ball. Maestro was saying when the Hatate clicks, that Celtic tick. I quite like that one, to be fair. And for my own personal opinion as well, you think Matt O'Reilly leaving, this would be the push for Reo to be that main player, be the main, like you say, the main guy, one of our big footballers in the team. And there is on occasion where he does give the ball away. I think Roger just spoke about that quite openly, that he doesn't like that being wasteful in possession, given the opportunity to the opposing team to attack and possibly score a goal from that situation. So elements of his play still need to improve, but there is no doubt on the eye, I think he is probably up there with top 3 best players when he's on form and when Celtic are flying on all cylinders, and he's a joy to watch. But obviously Luke McCann and Arnie Angles have come into the team. Arnie Angles more so for the club record fee. He's Belgian international now. People using that tag like a badge of honour. People seem to forget that Dedrick Boyata was an international when he was with us as well. So I don't know why it's so luxury now that he is, but it's still a good achievement. He's mixing with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Yuri Tillemans, and people of that ilk. Very, very well experienced and world class players. But where does that battle in the midfield go then? If Reo Hatate still isn't a Rodgers player, or he's improving elements of his game, and Rodgers has spoken about that, and he's been a brilliant player since the start of the season, like 2 goals and a couple of assists to his name. But I mean, you're bringing in Arnie Angles for £11 million. I don't think he's coming in to sit in the bench. And I know people might say he's coming in for Bernardo, but Bernardo, I mean, he was fantastic against Sevco, and I think Bernardo's there again to make that midfield position his own. So if Reo wants to kind of, as you said, he's turning 27. If he wants that big move, that one last opportunity, this is his season to show what he can do, how much value he's worth, and then the clubs will start lifting their heads, being like, this guy's worth a punt. But I don't know where that battle's going to go. I mean, you any thoughts on that?
Well, look, the kind of the trajectory of Hatate's career will be pivotal this season if he manages to stay injury free. Because I think in pretty much every season he's had so far at Celtic, what is that, three years?
Yeah.
3 seasons, and now it's his 4th. It's been, I wouldn't say blighted with injury, but it's disrupted. It's probably disrupted almost every season for Hatate. In glimpses, he's been brilliant, and then it's taken him a while back to get back up to speed. Look, if Hatate can stay injury free this season, then it will show you his worth. And somebody said, let's not talk about prices or the onward club. I totally agree with that. Let's just focus on the player and what he can do for Celtic and what he can do in terms of just becoming a better player. Let's focus on that. Let's not talk about the onward club. Hatate can be a brilliant player for Celtic if he can stay injury free, and if he can take on board the instructions for Rodgers to still make the risky passes, but at the right time, and be aware of where you are in the field of play, and be careful of the turnover, because if he loses the ball, then it can create a turnover and we can be exposed. I think with the loss of Matt O'Reilly and with new midfielders coming in like Bernardo and Engels, arguably we're a more physical midfield. I think Bernardo is a more physical player than O'Reilly. Engels is definitely a more physical player than O'Reilly. O'Reilly was majestical in the way that he moved, the way that he could play the ball, manipulate the ball, but he wasn't a runner. He wasn't an athlete. So Hatate, it will be really, really interesting to see how he comes to fruition this season if the stars align and he doesn't get injured. But I know that you've been asking me a lot of questions, so part of the way that you're kind of teeing it up, if I can kind of chuck it back to you in terms of our new signings. Mm-hmm. So, well, let's start off with the midfield, because we're talking about the midfield. Arnie Engels came in at 20 million. 20 years old, 11 million. Pardon me. 20 years old, 11 million.
Yeah.
So he got a bit of game time against Rangers at Parkhead, and you know, it was just an average appearance. You know, he didn't play good, didn't play bad, just average. Okay, nothing eye catching. And I wanted to ask you, on one hand, you're like, well, you've spent 11 million, you've broken the transfer record. So some people will say the guy needs to walk into the team. Other people will say, well, the guy's only 20 years old, he's still learning, he's still developing. And you've got Bernardo, you've got McGregor, you've got Hatate, who know what this league is all about, and they've played in the Champions League for Celtic. So does Engels walk into that team? So my opinion is you need to earn the jersey. The game against Rangers, Bernardo, for a lot of people, he got the kind of the people's man of the match. Yes, the people's man of the match.
Oh, shocking.
Not. I don't think he get. I don't know who Sky gave man of the match to, but certainly at Parkhead, the stadium man of the match was like Callum McGregor. I'm sure it was. But Bernardo had an eye-catching performance. Again, when I watched the Celtic podcast, Celtic Underground, they said that Bernardo made a lot of positive plays, but he lost the ball a lot of times. And sometimes I think we can get lost with the good, flattering pieces of play, and sometimes we forget about the times when he lost the ball. I can agree with that, and they got a bit of flack from that. But Bernardo, he's done it last season. He's won the league, pivotal, okay, to an extent. Engels comes in. Does Engels walk in and get the jersey, or does he need to earn it? And how does he earn it? What happens if Bernardo keeps doing well? And my next question to you is about Scales, the exact same time, because Scales had one of his best performances against the Huns. And how does Trusty get that? But I want to start off with the midfield. Engels, what's your thoughts on him? And can he just walk in and take the jersey, or does he need to fight for it? What's your thoughts on that?
You said something in your monologue, and before you asked me the question about the midfield being more physical and more of a presence than it was with O'Reilly, and even to the extent Reo Hatate in it, because he doesn't do the tracking back that maybe a Bernardo or an Engels on the first few, and obviously really small sample size that he actually does, and he's well known for his defensive capabilities in the Bundesliga. My early prediction, Gav, is Rodgers has always spoke about, and I'm using the manager's words here, about pace, power, athleticism, physicality, athletic players since he came back in the second time to the club. And if you look at the profile of Bernardo, I think he's maybe touching over 6 foot, strapping, strong physically, can track back, can move forward, basically box to box when he puts his mind to it. Good endurance as well. You look at Arnie Engels, can play multiple positions in that midfield. I think he's touching 6 foot as well, looks an imposing figure, and that tag as a fully blown Belgian international with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and players of that nature. I'm really thinking here that you might see in an instance in the future, maybe not so distant, that Reo Hatate and Luke McCown will be the understudies to the starting trio of Arnie Engels, Paulo Bernardo, and Callum McGregor. And I only say this, and look, it's probably pie in the sky and might not happen, but if I'm putting 2 and 2 together of what the manager spoke about in terms of the profile of a player for European competition, now you use Bernardo all the time in the Champions League last season, but he wasn't getting game time in the SPFL for whatever reason at that time, but he thought he could trust him in the big European ties. And again, if you pair that with Arnie Engels, they're both, like as I said, tall, they're physical, they're explosive, they're good endurance, they can play multiple positions. The flexibility across the midfield as well. Rodgers likes to use them tactical phrases, so I can see that happening. Look, again, maybe laughed at, but it's the manager's words, Gav. He is, you know yourself, he spoke about that multiple times about getting more physicality into the team, getting more pressing into the team, more runners into the team. And maybe Arnie Engels and Bernardo, all them players. And like the discussion we had there about 5 or so minutes ago, Reo Hatate might find himself on the periphery, on the bench. And that, again, this is a Rodgers thing. I'm using what he's saying. I mean, that's my thoughts initially.
Can I ask you then, in terms of a midfield has to be creative? Matt O'Reilly, I felt, was, with the way that Hatate has been playing this season, I felt that O'Reilly was our most creative player. And you could say that again for last season in terms of his stats, the goals that he got, the goals that he set up. O'Reilly was our chief creator. Now, we've lost O'Reilly. If Hatate was to be benched as well, then where does that creativity come from? Because I don't think Bernardo, I think he's got a lot of characteristics. He's got a lot of things that he can offer. But does he have that eye for a pass? Does Engels have that eye for a pass, especially with Engels just starting out in this new league, finding his feet? So McGregor, yeah, he can maybe do that, but are we losing something? We've lost O'Reilly, but if Hatate was to be dropped on merit, then does our midfield lose a bit of creativity? We probably become more industrious, more harder to beat. You know, I've always maintained that McGregor is a great number 6 for a playmaker, but he's not a good defensive playmaker. He might have, like, as you would say in Glasgow, you've got your Horners, you've got Bernardo 6 foot plus, you've got Engels 6 foot plus. So he's got that kind of support to help out the defence. But in terms of going forward, creating opportunities, because that's our bread and butter in the SPL. Where is that creativity coming from? If we're already lost O'Reilly and maybe Hatate gets benched for Engels.
Well, Bernardo got the secondary assist for the first goal when he played that lovely ball over the top for AJ on the right-hand side, and he crossed it in for Mieda to score against Rangers in the derby. So he proves he has an eye for a pass, and he also has an eye for a goal. He scored in Portugal under-21 duty against Croatia during the week. So look again, these players do have something. I think Arne Engels in the Bundesliga last season had 8 or 9 assists, 5 goals from a deep line kind of position, defensive midfield position. So they have something. They have something to offer. But I do get what you mean. Reo Hatate has that off-the-cuff attitude where he can take the ball one way, his body goes the other way, leaves 2 or 3 midfield players for dust, and he opens up space for others going into play. But as I said, I love Reo Hatate. And as you said, it has to be a merit. It has to be a reason why an Arne Engel comes in, or Luke McCown comes in and takes that position. It's Hatate's position to lose. I do believe that. I think he started the season incredibly well. But I'd say more so in European football, you'll see that trio coming into effect, and then maybe the trio that I spoke about in terms of Kalmack, Bernardo, and Engels for that physicality, as you said, industrious, being hard to beat, being hard to kind of get past, and that press would be imposing with 3 fucking players 6 foot plus around that. So there's stuff to look at it from that angle. And then you can maybe see Rodgers having a leaning towards that in the bigger games in the domestic scene. So you just don't know. It's not as if Reo Hatate, as was said, as being the Rodgers' man, like his main player. He's been happy enough to leave him out and drop him for the likes of Turnbull, and if he hasn't been happy with his attitude or the way he's passing the ball, the way he's keeping it. So Rodgers isn't shy and making big calls like that.
Well, that's a good answer, and it's true what they say, that wisdom comes with age, and obviously with you pushing on 30, you are coming out with more coherent answers. I agree with that. So moving on to defence now, Stephen. Whenever I joined the podcast, one of the questions I asked you, not like a kind of quick fire thing, it was kind of meant as tongue in cheek, but one of the questions I asked you, and it was almost a year ago, I asked you, if we were to start off this campaign with Liam Scales as our first choice centre back, how would you feel? And your answer was to the negative. Like you would find that very discouraging. You would find it quite alarming if it was still Cameron Vickers and Liam Scales. However, wouldn't you fast forward to the present? We've bought in Trusty, the American centre back, who has had a few international appearances for America. However, ironically, Liam Scales had one of his best performances again against the Huns, and that's not the first time, because whenever he was thrown into the cauldron, him and Lager Bielka at Ibrox last season, at the start of last season, he got man of the match for that. He got man of the match for it, and he came up trumps. And I thought, no matter what happens after this, he's done his family proud. He got man of the match against the Rotten Mob at Ibrox. No matter his career can nosedive from now, but he can be proud of that moment. But that's not happened. His career hasn't nosedived. He's kind of maintained like a couple of peaks and troughs, but he's still there. He's still there. And then we start off. We're playing against the Rotten Mob at Parkhead. We win 3-0, and he was imperious. Obviously, Cameron Cutter-Vickers, he is the man at centre back. But Scales was very, very reliable again. And we brought in Austin Trusty, £6 million. And we spoke to you, I think me and you had the conversation before the international break started. And we said, well, football is all about harsh decisions. We recognise as fans that we're kind of disillusioned with Scales, disillusioned with him about his distribution with the ball. And if you bring in a man for £6 million, eventually you're going to have to say, look, this guy is intended to be your replacement. You're just going to have to suck it up, and you're going to have to make that replacement. That's how coaches forge their careers, with harsh decisions. But I guess the flip side of that is you bring in a player who might be better at passing out from the back than what Scales is, but you need to understand, are you losing something from this new player? Is this new player not got the same attributes than what Scales did in terms of defending from the back, that back to the ball attitude, that last ditch defending, which Scales is actually pretty good at? So I guess the other question, we spoke about Engels walking into the midfield. Is it justifiable because of his price tag? Well, the same thing applies to Trusty. £6 million for a defender. Does he walk into the defence, or has Scales really done enough to justify keeping his jersey? Where do you stand in this?
So this is the thing. I remember you asking me that quick fire question. I think I said something along the lines of, it would be abysmal if that situation occurred again. And look, I still think in a way that I was justifying in what I'm saying. We're all quick to give Liam Scales praise, which is fair enough. But then the harsh reality sets in during that week, or however many days it may be until the next match, if it's European or whatever, that he's just not quite good enough for that level. What Liam Scales is for me, much like, look, again, different ends of the scale, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Kyogo is a very instinctive striker, where he's good at the boom. But seeing you give him time to think, sometimes he makes the odd bad call, or he goes for a chip when he shouldn't do, and things of that nature. Liam Scales to me is a very instinctive defender. When he's getting pressed, he's very good. And yeah, Brown Warrior, I do agree. When he's getting pressed, he's very good at being instinctive and finding the pass quite quickly. But see, when you're sitting off Scales and he's wandering into the midfield position, dilly-dallying on the ball, maybe taking 78 touches before he releases it, that's when you see Liam Scales' bad side, where he's not being productive. He's second guessing himself, putting the team under pressure, and he loses the ball quite a lot in them positions as well. So when you get to the European level, you need to have a bit of both, be instinctive, but also understand when to pick the right pass, when you're not being pressed, when you have time in the ball, you be calm and composed, and then you don't rush when you get into the centre areas of the pitch. And I just think Liam Scales really lacks that. I know he carries the ball quite well, but he does run out of ideas. I don't know if people notice this. He gallops to a certain point of the pitch, and then he turns back on himself and he tries to find Taylor or Carter Vickers, and the ball just ends up back where it was. Austin Trusty is a left-sided defender, I believe, £6 million. He's not coming in to sit on the bench. I think we'll see Austin Trusty against Falkirk in the Cup. I think Liam Scales will get the Hearts game. He'll get the Slovan Bratislava game. But then we'll see Trusty introduced into the team. And if Trusty has a brilliant performance against Falkirk, I can see that jersey being his, to be fair. And we're talking about harsh calls here, Gav. That to me would fall underneath that term, harsh. But Liam has a level. His level's SPL. We're building. We need to be European level team. We're better in the SPFL. We're better than teams in it. Aim higher.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment from Brown Warrior. And sorry, Stephen, you threw up something up. What were you saying? Was it from?
It was the Brown Warrior.
If there was a better defensive display in Europe than his versus Lazio at Parkhead by another centre back, then I have never seen it. Brown, I'm not trying to disagree with you, but where do you feel that Scales' limitations are? We felt that Cameron Carter-Vickers is not the defender to upgrade upon, but Scales is the defender to upgrade upon. I think, and you're probably right to call me out, and I'm doing him a disservice to say that he's a last ditch defender. I think that he's good at bringing the ball out. Not as good as Idah. I thought Idah was much better at that. But in terms of when you're bringing the ball out, at that point, whenever you get confronted by the midfield, you need to be assertive in what you're doing. I think once he brings the ball out and he gets confronted, then he puts his foot in the ball, and then he makes a bad pass. Not all the time, but sometimes. And the crowd groans. I feel that it's not once or twice, it's a pattern, it's a regular pattern. And I think that that's one of the things that we feel that's why we need to upgrade upon Scales. I think it's always good to have two centre-backs who are different from each other. If you've got two warriors, it's not going to work. You need one as a ball-playing centre-back and one as a destroyer, kind of like Rio Ferdinand and Vidic, or Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister. You need people to complement each other, just as like back when you're playing 4-4-2 and you had two centre-forwards who would do different types of jobs. I think Liam Scales has been brilliant for Celtic, and I don't think he's a liability. I think we're actually lucky to have him. I think we're lucky for him to have found his confidence at Celtic. I think he's a far better player than what he was at Aberdeen. He's found his confidence. If you watched him, there was a wee clip of him at Lennoxtown with him, Schmeichel, Lewis Palmer, and Yang, and Scales was doing like chip overs, like when he was like doing like a one-on-one against the goalie. He was doing chip overs. You can see how confident he was on the training park. But whenever you're in games, that's where you see the kind of fractures, the frailties of a player. As much as I love Scales, as much as I think he's reliable, I think he's upgradable, and it's his distribution where I think that we can improve upon. If Scales can do, if Trusty can do better upon that, then we might need Brendan Rodgers, who's paid to make the big decisions, to make that decision. And we're fans, and we love sentimentality, and we hate to see players dropped who play for the jersey and play for the heart. But if Trusty is going to make us a better team, then maybe we need to make that decision. But the proof will be in the pudding. Stephen,
see as well. No, it wasn't hurrying along. I was agreeing with what you're saying. What I was going to say, if Rodgers made that harsh call and brought Trusty in to be that starting partner alongside Carter-Vickers, Liam Scales to me would be happy with that. He's living his dream. He's an Irishman. He's a Celtic fan. And if he's going to be reduced to maybe 10 to 15 games a season, I think he'd be okay with that. I mean, last season, we needed him a lot because we didn't have the appropriate defensive cover because of poor recruitment decisions, injuries, and a whole lot of reasons came into that. But also as well, he was fantastic. And all I think what me and you are saying is tonight, his limitations are for there to be seen when he's either being confronted in the middle of the pitch. As I said, the one plus point that I'll give him, when a player is running towards him, when he's on the edge of his own 16-yard area or 18-yard area, he's good at playing the ball round him, the tailor, and getting out that way. But when he wanders into that central area of the pitch, that's when the mistakes start to creep in. That's when we're getting under pressure with a back pass to Carter-Vickers, and he's under pressure from the striker. So that's what happens. But keeping on the defensive chat, Alistair Johnson talks, rumours of a new contract in the open form to bring him in line with some of the best paid players at the club. Deserved?
Yeah. He's done very well. I think he's endeared himself to the Celtic fans. Alistair Johnson's done really well. Whenever you bring in a Canadian footballer or an American footballer, sometimes people can get a wee bit sceptical about their ability. But I think Alistair Johnson, on the whole, has done very, very well for Celtic. We did a quick fire round of like fullbacks. I did it maybe a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke about like our favourite fullbacks. Alistair Johnson, for me, is more of an athlete than a footballer. I think maybe Greg Taylor is a better footballer than an athlete. If you were to combine the two together, you'd probably get a far better player. But Alistair Johnson is a proper asset for Celtic Football Club, and I think he's justified an improved contract. I think that we need to be in the habit of rewarding players, not off the cuff, but after a season. whenever you bring in a player and you get them for low wages, from sometimes a player might not be in the best financial position to demand the highest wages, but whenever a player comes in and they properly perform and they prove that they're an asset, then they need to be rewarded. And it's overdue for Alistair Johnson, much like it might be overdue for Greg Taylor as well. I'm sure he's already had a renewed contract since he signed for Celtic, because he's been with the club for a number of years. But back to Alistair Johnson, absolutely overdue. If he's not had a wage rise up until this point, definitely overdue. I don't know where he can go in terms. I know that we get a wee bit kind of like told off. Don't talk about players and their ceiling and where they can go to. So I don't want to get carried away with that. How good can Alistair Johnson be as a Celtic player? I don't know, but
he reminds me, Gav. I don't know if you like. Again, I'm going to butcher the name here, but he reminds me of that Belgian right back, Thomas Meunier. What? Do you know who I'm talking about? That guy. Yes, he reminds me a lot of him.
Did he play for PSG?
Yes, he played for PSG. Also a Belgian international. I called him Meunier. That is pathetic. But in terms of profile of player, and like you said, like in terms of being athletic, he possesses the same qualities, in my opinion. I think Roger was asked today about was AJ up there with the top fullbacks that he's coached, and he said yes, obviously, because of the attributes he does pose. And if we keep him for the long run, if he gets this contract extension and agrees to it, I'll absolutely be over the moon. But again, like you said, we'll have to caveat it with Matt O'Reilly signing a new contract. A year later, he's away. So sometimes you're protecting an asset for a bigger fee. But we won't get bogged down with that tonight. What about the Greg Taylor thing? I find that interesting. He was kind of briefly talked about that today as well. I get the feeling that Greg Taylor wants to try something different. And who knows? That's the rumour. But if he does, he goes with my best wishes.
I think Greg Taylor is playing the game, and so he should. So the last kind of interview that he had in public, he said that he didn't know where his future lay. That his contract was up at the end of the season. He had no talks, no communication with the club. But then I read today that Brendan Rodgers had come out with a statement to say that we really want Greg Taylor to stay. He wants to tie him down to a new deal. I think. Well, that's what I want to hear. It's maybe a wee bit too late. I would prefer for these discussions never to happen. I would prefer not to leave it until the final season for this to happen. Greg Taylor is, let me just stick his name into the transfer market just to kind of figure out his age anyway, because
26, is he?
Age is quite important in this thing. So he's going to be 27 on the 5th of November. So he's coming up for 27. And again, the next contract that he signs is going to be the biggest one of his life, probably. He's at the peak earning potential of his career. So if we don't offer him the contract that he feels that he deserves, or that his agent feels that he deserves, then he's going to piss about and he'll probably get a contract from a championship team in England. He's not EPL level. He's not the top flight of English Premier League level. No chance of that. Greg Taylor is, again, an asset to Celtic. Very, very important. But I don't think he's capable of making the top grade in England, but I think he's capable of making the championship grade in England. However, we need him. It's already a weak spot where we need to improve upon him. The last thing that we need is to improve. The last thing we need is to get rid of the player that we need to improve upon, because then we've got nothing. We've got Adam Montgomery. And then we need to shift Liam Scales out to left back, and that's just a pandemonium. That cannot be allowed to happen. We need to offer him a proper contract that's befitting of him. We have earned a lot of success, domestic success, on the back of him being a first team player for Celtic. Mm-hmm. So we can't take the piss. Don't take the piss at the players who are good for you, who have got you to where you are. I appreciate that we want to get better than Greg Taylor, but give him a contract that's worth his value. And if he doesn't want it, then okay, he can go elsewhere. And we will need to be proactive about that and bring in 2 players probably. But don't take the piss out of Greg Taylor. He's earned a good contract. I I just think it's a wee bit sad. If this was Kieran Tierney, would this have been allowed, like Kieran Tierney without the injuries, would this have been allowed to rumble on for this to become a conversation in the press where you've got Brendan Rodgers speaking about one thing and Greg Taylor speaking about one thing? That's a bit disrespectful for me. It shouldn't have been allowed to come to this situation. Getting tied down on another 5-year contract, 5-year contract. Why not? Because that's what we deal in 5-year contracts. That's the currency that we deal with. Do it because we do it for everybody else. Why should Greg Taylor be any different? But we should still improve upon him. But tie him down.
Yeah, I actually do agree with your train of thought there. I mean, he merits it. He's been a part of these fantastic squads. He's played his part. He's changed multiple in terms of position and tactics, the way he plays inverted, traditional fullback and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree, and I do agree with the premise that we do have to improve on him as well. But before we move on to the actual Hearts game, Gav, have you any burning issues you want to talk about before we go into the game lineups and score prediction?
Mate, I have got several questions for my cross-examination of you.
Oh Jesus! What? Last time I heard that was a cop shop. No, I'm only joking.
To be honest, somebody said you're a cunt of a cook, Stephen. That's your dinner burning again. So I guess I do actually have questions, but so again, you're hosting some of the core members of the Endless Celts. So as a host, are you going to make like a home cooked meal? Are you going to order in? Are you if you do make a home cooked meal, what are you going to make them?
Gav, let me tell you one thing.
What's your specialty?
I'm good at bolognese. I'm good at steak. But let me tell you one thing, and trust me, this is Bible. In no way, shape, or form will I be cooking any form of meal for them clowns tomorrow. We'll be out, pissed, and we'll roll in with a kebab around 3 a.m. or something. But my specialty, I can cook a good steak. I think everyone really can. Bolognese, I like making my own pasta sauce, a wee bit of wine in it, and chopped tomatoes and things of that nature. But no home cooked meals, Gav. I think that's far from what's actually. They're going to get bacon. This baffles me, right? This really baffles me. Over there, you call bacon rolls mindless. It's mindless, right? Over here, they're called bacon bops, right? So tomorrow, they're going to get bacon bops for their breakfast, and that's the stomach lining complete.
Okay, well, in England, they call it like a bacon butty. So you've got butty in England. In the north of Ireland, you've got bops.
No, but Gav.
In Scotland,
Baps.
Baps. Well, baps over here means something totally different, you know. Get your baps out. But it's a roll at the end of the day. So I think technically, on a technicality, we're probably accurate.
It's not. How's a roll, Gav? How's a roll? It's a bit of bread, right? Hold on a wee second, right? See if you're eating a burger, right? Because the bacon comes in a thing shaped like you get your burger in. Do you go to the shop and go, "Can I have a burger roll?" No, you don't. It's not a thing. It's mindless. It doesn't make sense. It's not a roll. It's not circular. It's not a celt. That's weird. Don't be doing that in the podcast. It's not a roll. If it was a roll, it'd be a baguette. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know if we're talking about bread or if we're talking about rolls. A roll is a roll. Bread is bread. You can get a bacon sandwich, which is bacon and bread, or if it's a roll, then it's a bacon roll. I don't understand the what's lost in translation. You know, we're not that far away. We're not that far away, Stephen, in terms of distance. But obviously, there is some sort of ongoing problem here. I want to move on to something a wee bit more worth our substance. I want to talk about Adam Idah. Can Adam Idah top last season's performance? He came in with 6 months to go. He came into a club in need, and he was our hero. He got a barrel load of goals, and he won the league for us. He also won the cup for us, and we've shed out a lot of money for him. 8.5 rising to 9.5. So there's a bit of responsibility in him now. Again, it's kind of thwarted with the fact that Kyogo is still the preferred number 9. But Idah offers something entirely different from Kyogo. In my opinion, Idah is better suited to the away games, perhaps even Hampden. But Kyogo, for me, is the best Celtic centre forward at the club right now. So my question to you is, can Idah top last season, or can he even sustain it? Not going to be as impressive as what it was last season. What's your thoughts on the impact it can make last season? I also have another question for you after that, and it was, who's the greatest Irish Celtic player? But let's focus on the first one. Can Idah sustain or even top last season's impact?
I've seen I wouldn't say criticism, but I've seen the concerns that people are shouting about Adam Idah at this precise moment, and I only think that really revolves around the fee and what he's cost. If we get him in another loan or the 3 million.
Can I interrupt? And I'm so sorry for doing that, because it's the height of rudeness. The first couple of appearances that Adam Idah has made for Celtic this season, he's not match fit. He's looked a bit clumsy, and I am not concerned about that at all. He's not match fit. That will come, and then we can judge him. Right now, not the time to judge him. He looks a wee bit rusty, and he is rusty, but he's not match fit. Sorry, continue on, please.
No. I think we were going along the same lines there, to be honest, but there's a lot of panic about the fee, and that is equal to maybe a bit of people being anxious about him not scoring or not making a bigger impact as they want Adam Idah to do this early on. And there's also an element as well. Maybe he's trying too hard. Maybe he's overthinking things. Maybe he's shooting when he shouldn't shoot. Maybe he's making the wrong decision for a pass. So he's probably overthinking that himself, and he'll take a while, as you said, to get match fit, get back into the familiar surroundings of Celtic again, get used to how we're playing. He didn't really have a pre-season under Norwich, and if he did, he wasn't really fucking giving it his all, because he wanted to make that move to Celtic and make it permanent, which he done. I'm not concerned about him. When I do agree, in Europe, I think he'll be a huge asset in the away games, especially to bring others into play, to be that hold-up player, to be that kind of focal point of the attack when we're getting pressured, when we're struggling to get a press. I think it'll be, what's this? We can't go forward until Steve. Fuck off. Gee, so it's a bop. That's a fucking bacon bop. It's right. Never mind. Right.
Sorry, see, bop, is it B-O-P? That sounds like a dance move to me. A bop.
No, it's Gav, you're definitely doing that on purpose. It's bop. B-A-P. B-A-P.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, a bacon bop. Again, it's the same thing with the English, a bacon butty. Like, it means fuck all.
Stop saying that in the same sentence. It's not to do with being English. It's not. It's bacon bop. And see other things you have stone. Potato bread. You just call it, what do you call it? Tatty scones? Jesus. It's actually, it's embarrassing. They used to call it tatty or something. So you used to, is it tatty?
Do you not call it potato tatty, no?
What? No, we call it potato bread. It's, I don't know. It's fine. But anyway, now you've got Paul McFarlane going like Stephen's Batman. But look, I'm not I'm not concerned about Adam Idah. He'll come good. Well, I will be concerned if he's went 13 or 14 games without doing anything. That's when I'll start to question what's going on. Because, like you said, Gav, it's just match fitness and sharpness is really it. In terms of the best Irish player, is it that I've seen or the whole of time? Because sometimes you throw me these questions and then laugh at me when I give you the answers. So you tell
Stephen,
me.
I am not setting you up for failure or ridicule. If it's a wider audience, if we had more people, I would definitely be setting you up for ridicule. But me and you are just having a one-on-one conversation right now, so I'm going to be far more respectful. No, but just in terms of right, okay, so you think. No, but back to Adam Idah before you give your kind of your greatest Irish player. How do you think Adam Idah's season is going to go? Like, do you think it's just the European games? Do you think he's going to get favoured over Kyogo, or do you think he'll always be the sub until Kyogo gets injured? And do you think even whenever he's given the game time, do you think he will be as good as last season? Do you think it's too Do you think last season was the peak of his career, and it'll be difficult for him to improve upon that? Do you think he is a player that can improve? Sorry, that's a lot of questions.
That's a lot of questions, Gav. I don't even know where to start. But like Brendan Rodgers said when he came in that he's a player with a high ceiling and he'll triple what he's worth in 2 or 3 years, obviously, under his stewardship and coaching. So I do believe he will improve as a player. Impact-wise, it's hard to tell this early on, but I agree with you in the fact where I think he'll be really key in Europe. I think he'll be one of our main players when we get fully into this league phase campaign that we're having in the Champions League. I think he'll be vital once he gets up to speed. And again, I don't think Kyogo is a full Rodgers player. So I don't think Rodgers would be afraid to drop Kyogo if it came to the point where Adam Idah was showing more, making more of an impact on the game. But Kyogo has been brilliant since the start of the season, so it'd be hard to do that right now at this moment. I do believe Adam Idah will make the same impact as he did over a course of maybe 10 to 11 games coming off the bench, maybe scoring 5 or 6 goals. So he will have an impact. He will improve. I do think he'll get bits of the campaign where he will be first choice. But again, that's up to him. Like it's up to any other player to keep that his own jersey. But I'm very hopeful and optimistic for his future in a Celtic shirt. And James Kennedy tell me to get a life. Why? What's all the hate for? Why am I getting hate? I don't understand. I'm lost.
Stephen, I don't know where that's coming from. I'm not encouraging
That's you. That's you. That is 100% you. It always happens. It's you.
Stephen, I guess the other thing, if we're talking about breakfast food, do you prefer a square sausage? Do you get that in your neck of the woods, or do you call it a rectangular sausage? Are you accusing us of bastardizing the language? And if it is a square sausage, do you prefer that or a link sausage?
We just get normal sausages over here, mate. No squares or circles or rectangles or hexagons or triangles. And again, it's baffling to me how you can call that a square. A sausage is a sausage, mate. It's a link sausage. Use are wide. See, like Scottish, like the batter everything. So Mars bars and pizza fritters and madness, and then they're on the about calling things square and all. It's I'm only having a bit of crack. People don't kill me in the comments. No, but genuinely, we don't get square sausage over here. We just get links, just normal sausages. If we do get it, I've never seen it. So it might be me being ignorant, but I've never ever seen it in the shop. And I know James Kennedy, you're only kidding. We're all having a bit of laugh. But you wanted me to answer you about the best ever Irish player. Is that still the case, or have we moved on? Or?
We have not moved on at all. I've barely moved on from the breakfast chat right now. Okay, but I'm going to reluctantly put that to the
side. Ask me if you want to get something off your chest. You ask me, and I'll tell you.
I'm going to talk about Irish players right now. Okay. Right. Right. Who's your favourite ever Irish Celtic player? And it can be whenever you were a child or whenever you were a man-child.
Funny, Gav. While you're pouring wine from a box, you're calling me a man-child. It's actually incredible. It's incredible. No thing, but sure. Is that box nearly finished, or is it still going?
It's less heavy than what it was when we started the podcast. Yeah.
Who's the best ever Irish player that I've seen? Paul Maguire, Pat Bonner, Brian Warrior, Pat Bonner.
Anthony Stokes.
Stokesy? Yeah, no. You don't need to name them. I've got them in my mind. I'm trying to. Did it have to be? Did it have to be fully Irish? Like, did it just have to play for the Irish national team?
No, it can be from the occupied counties. It can be from everywhere, you know.
No. I'm saying I've got a player in mind, but he's not Irish, but he played for the Irish national team.
I'm open to that consideration, yes.
So, without question, Idah McGeady. Without question.
Really, yeah, really.
See, when you talked about me being a kid, he was unbelievable. I tried the McGeady spin. He was so quick. He was so fast when he first came onto the scene, and he really entertained me. Idah McGeady, for me. Look, Robbie Keane was a great player when we had him for 6 months, wasn't it? I think it was 17 goals in 16 games. Great goals to game ratio, but he didn't stay, so I can't really count him. Remember we had like Daryl Murphy. Remember Daryl Murphy?
Oh,
Stokesy was good.
Daryl Murphy. Whenever Daryl Murphy and Anthony Stokes were the centre forwards for Celtic, my brother-in-law was taking the piss at me because my brother-in-law is a Crystal Palace fan, and back in the day they used to have Anthony Stokes and Daryl Murphy for their centre forward pairing, and it felt that we had thoroughly downgraded by that point to have them playing for Celtic. But sorry, you were talking.
No. Anton Rogan's a great shout, but I never seen him play Brown Warrior, but Gav might be able to fill that one in. But yeah, I like Stokes. When he played off the left, I thought him and Hooper linked up really, really well. I think Stokes got over 50 goals for us in the end, and unfortunately his career took a really, really big nosedive. There's Celtic. Ian McGeady is from Wood Farm, east of Virginia. Like, I specified the rules. Gav concurred that I could pick someone who played for the Irish national team, and it was McGeady. I'm trying to think. Who else, Gav, would have been around? I may be missing names here in the 2000s. There was McGeady. Roy Keane came, obviously, for that ill-fated spell. Robbie King, Darren O'Dea, Johnny Hayes, yeah. But, I mean, who would be your favourite?
It would be Robbie Keane, and I know that he only played for us for 6 months, but when Robbie Keane played for Celtic, he was the best I've ever seen since Henrik Larsson. And for me, Robbie Keane was better than Kyogo. I would take Robbie Keane. I would take Robbie Keane over Kyogo because Robbie Keane, like, he did it in the EPL, you know. He got the move to Liverpool. It never worked out for him at Liverpool, albeit Rafa Benitez was the manager and Rafa Benitez was trying to play him at left wing half the time. Robbie Keane for me was a diamond of a striker. He was a brilliant player for Ireland. He was amazing for Celtic in the 6 months. He's a hero of Tottenham. He played for Coventry, for Wolves. He signed for Inter Milan when he was practically a teenager. It never worked out for him. But going to Inter Milan at that age in Italian football, it would have been difficult to kind of make a mark. Stephen wants to get on to say. Yeah, of course. Well, I would say that if I was invited to Stephen's this weekend, but I'm not. So, fuck you. No, but for me, Robbie Keane would be the best in my lifetime, the best Irishman to have played for Celtic who represented the Republic. Roy Keane, however, it wasn't even 6 months. We never even got 6 months out of Roy Keane. Roy Keane is a legend. He is the legend, but it was too short, and he was half the player whenever he signed for Celtic. Robbie Keane was still banging him in for Celtic, and then he went back to England, and he was still doing the business. I would go for Robbie Keane. I love Aidan McGeady. I think Aidan McGeady, the only kind of shortfall for him was he was never graced with physicality. If he had physicality, then with his trickery, he would have been a brilliant player. But he was limited in that regard. You know, he wasn't a tall sprinter. He really had to work at his game. I remember like Aidan McGeady is like my generation. He's like same age as me. I remember like growing up and reading about Aidan McGeady in the tabloid newspapers, getting boot deals at the age of 8, 9, 10. I remember playing against them in a school primary game, and like everybody knew about him, you know. And he had a massive career. He had a brilliant career.
Yeah, he did.
He's an intelligent guy as well. I think he's a wee bit arrogant. I think he's quite aloof. I think he's. I don't think he's the type of player that I would like to have a drink with, you know, just to kind of talk to. I think there's other players that I think that I would prefer to kind of talk to. I don't think he's the type of player I would get on with. But he had a brilliant career. Robbie Keane for me. However, Damien Duff, who never actually signed for Celtic, I remember he played for Blackburn against Celtic in one of the UEFA Cup games. Damien Duff, a fantastic player. I wish he signed for Celtic. Brilliant left winger. Played for Blackburn, played for Chelsea. Brilliant player. Aye.
And he was also part of the Celtic coaching team, wasn't he? Under Rodgers, I believe, the first time.
for a short period of time, and then for some reason or another he left. He went back to Ireland. Aye.
Shelburne manager at the moment. He's always on Twitter. You always see him doing mad stuff. You're right, Gav. I met McGinney in Orchard Park Hotel. A wee knob, and to be fair, some players are just like that, aren't they? Some players do have a bit of arrogance about them and don't carry it well. Maybe McGinney's one of them players. But Gav, anything else, buddy?
Yeah. Okay, so I tried to make a note of things that we spoke about. Okay, Alan Thompson, yes, the petulance on Twitter at missing out on the Legends game. So Celtic and Manchester United played a Legends game at Old Trafford. Our very own Anthony Dunn went down to report on that game. However, he had been reported missing. He had too many shandies, and we've not heard back from him in terms of the feedback of the game. However, Celtic won on penalties, I think it was. It finished 1 each. Celtic won on penalties. Alan Thompson wasn't picked for the game. And I remember reading on Twitter that Thompson said, like, I'm gutted to never get picked for the Celtic Legends game. They must have only picked the serial winners to represent Celtic. I think it's a bit of poor form. But don't get me wrong, I think online social media, it brings out the worst in people anyway. I don't know if he had a couple of drinks that night whenever he sent that post. Alan Thompson, he was a brilliant player for Celtic. Maybe whenever Celtic contacted him, he was not coherent whenever he answered the phone call. I don't know. But for one reason or another, he wasn't picked. Stephen, it's a storm in a teacup. Did you hear about that? What's your thoughts? Yeah. Alan Thompson's been a wee bit immature.
Look, I think when you see the likes of, no offence, but Cy Ferry being invited along to Legends games, you know that Celtic maybe don't take it as quite as seriously as they should, albeit there were still notable people like Petrov and Jan Vinegar Hassling, Samras involved in the team. But like again, these charity games are nothing short of a bit of fun, bit of spectacle, and a bit of crack for the fans and the players who are playing in the game. So I don't know if to take it that seriously. I don't know if they have a roll call that people will call up for the games, because it is quite similar names who they choose all the time. Look, from what I can tell, and I don't want to delve too much into it because it's not my business, it's not my life, but I think Alan Thompson may be going through some stuff, because sometimes you see the odd outburst on Twitter, sometimes you see the odd rant on Twitter, and people are saying you'll be okay, get through this. So I don't know what's going on in his own personal life. Maybe something's happened. Maybe he's lashing out. These things do happen. I loved Alan Thompson as a player. Had him on the back of one of my shirts when I was growing up. Fantastic left-sided player. Played for Villa and things of that nature. And part of that Villa team. And he is a serial winner. Do you know what I mean? He is. And that was possibly a tongue-in-cheek comment at the time. But look, I don't know. I don't read too much into it. Larson wasn't there. Other players of that ilk weren't there. But it doesn't mean that necessarily if they asked to go, they would be rejected. So maybe if he wants to play in these games, reach out to the club and see what their protocols are. You know, I'm sure they have an open door policy to legends like him. So, look, like storm of the teacup, Gav, maybe a bit petulant, yes, but again, you don't know what's going on in someone's head. So maybe tread carefully around that one. I know it's, I just don't know what's going on in his personal life.
Very mature response, and the wisdom is just oozing off you as you age towards 30 tonight. A couple of other things before we move on to the Celtic and Hearts game. No, I'm actually being serious, Stephen. You're really no. You make good comments. You're
so bad. You love coming at me, don't you? It's mental. It's fine.
I wouldn't use that phrase, Stephen. Right, moving on. Look, Stephen, there are rumours, okay, that the long-term aim is for Celtic to get Kieran Tierney. Now, Kieran Tierney got an injury in the first game of the Euros for Scotland. I think it was the first tie. Did Celtic? Okay, let's pretend that Celtic really want to get Kieran Tierney, and they held off because he got injured. Did Celtic need that as a reminder that Kieran Tierney is injury prone? Did you, as a Celtic fan, need that as a reminder that he's injury prone? Is it not just the thing? It's a fact. It's a fact of life that Kieran Tierney, I hate to say it, it's a fact that he is injury prone. However, this is speculation now at my point. Do you think that it's fair to say that he had his best years behind him? Do you think he's still got his best years ahead of him? Do you think that he's worth the risk? And if you do it, then like, what do you do? Do you do like a play as you play? Does that become a mockery? Because what if he becomes injured all the time, and then you need a backup to Kieran Tierney? You've got Greg Taylor playing at left back. You've got the fans' favourite who's on the injury bench, and then you need like a Valle or whoever to back up Greg Taylor, because Kieran Tierney is a fan's favourite, but he's never going to be there. He's never going to be fit when it matters. But this period right now is when it matters. Champions League is probably going to be over for us by the end of January, unless we flip a trend, which has been ongoing for a number of years. This is when we need our big players, and Kieran Tierney is injured again. But there's this rumour that we've been after Kieran Tierney, and we might be willing to hold off, and we'll buy him when he's proven his fitness again. And I've heard people say that you manage somebody's fitness, you manage it. He was playing for Arsenal, one of the most developed clubs on the planet. And if you're telling me that even Arsenal couldn't manage it, like they've got sports scientists, probably one of the best in Europe, and they know Kieran Tierney's physicality. They know the triggers. They know when to take him out and when to put him back in the firing line. If that club couldn't manage Kieran Tierney's fitness, how are we going to manage that? Because we don't have a fraction of Arsenal's capabilities in terms of sports Scientology. What's your thoughts? Is it just a pipeline dream? And again, is his best years behind him? And that's harsh as fuck to say. And I know that Dale's in this podcast, and he's a big fan of Kieran Tierney because he's from the neck of the woods that Kieran Tierney's from. What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's the romanticism and of Kieran Tierney coming back that plays in people's minds. What he done with coming through the ranks, being a Celtic boy through and through, loving the club, getting his big break to the EPL. It worked out for maybe 2 or 3 years. Then injuries started kicking in. Had a loan move to the Real Sociedad, but again, he got injured halfway through the season in Spain. So I wouldn't take him back, Gav. I wouldn't bank our forward left back position, our future years on Kieran Tierney being able to step up. Now, step up, harsh word, he can. He's a world-class left back, but I mean over a prolonged period of time. 5, 6, 7, 8 games in between maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if he could do that anymore. I don't know if he has the fitness. I think Celtic played a major part in that when he was young. We overused him. We didn't rest him in the right opportunities. We loved what we had, but we have to understand, yes, Gav is the people's champ. We have to understand that we played a major role in his future injuries, his hip flexors, and that was apparent when he was leaving us. That was an issue before he joined Arsenal. He was getting hip injuries and leg injuries and muscle sprains and stuff because we were, quite frankly, overusing him as a young kid coming through. It is exciting, and look, don't get me wrong, I kind of got caught up in that hype because he looked like he got over the fitness issues. He looked like he was getting around the games together towards the latter part of last season. He was in the Scotland squad and things were looking good going into the Euros. He was in high spirits, and it was just one wrong turn and he's out for a long time again. So look, I know people love him. I love him. I think, Gav, you probably love him as well, no question about that. But we have to, as you said, harsh decisions. It's the harsh reality that I don't think that he could maintain a full level of a committed season. And people talking about managing his workload, what does that mean then? Are you going to disrupt the left back position and play 2 players maybe 15 to 30 games each, or 15 games each, and in between different games, and you disrupt the flow, you disrupt the rhythm of the team because they're getting used to one left back, get switched out. So there's other things you have to take into consideration on that aspect of things. And I've heard that rumour Celtic are holding out. I've also heard that Arsenal are considering letting him go on a free, which obviously
You know, Arsenal have included him in their Champions League roster, which is perplexing.
Well, that's surprising. That is surprising, but it's probably a quota thing that we don't know about, Gav. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, but I don't think you'll get much of a look in. I think he's still injured. He's on the treatment table, but it's a no for me. I hate saying it, but Alex Valle coming in to deputise under Greg Taylor, then you're hopefully looking at the new recruitment team coming in that Rodgers has spoke about. I don't know when it's going to happen, but he spoke about it, that they're looking forward to next season and have a list of left backs so we're prepared to get into next season's round of football and whatever that may bring. But love him, but it's a no. It's a no for me.
I agree, and it's difficult. It's difficult. Right. Moving on to maybe the final question I've got for yourself, Stephen, before we do discuss Celtic and Hearts. And by the way, we've been doing brilliantly so far. An hour and 41 minutes in. Brilliant comments for everybody so far. Hope you're all doing well for your Friday night. I love a Friday night podcast. Stephen, by the way, you do look as if you're wearing a dressy shirt tonight.
Right.
Is that
okay?
A polka dot pattern that you've got? Can you explain?
It's a pretty green number. No,
Pretty green.
No, that Liam Gallagher make. I think it's something to do with him. I don't know, but aye.
Fair enough.
I'm not. I don't know how to. It's a polka. It's white polka dot polo, pretty green polo top. Aye. I mean, you look the part, Gav. You've got the old retro gear on. I wish I had retro gear on. I'm just stuck in a polo shirt, you know. So
you don't need to justify yourself to me, Dick Tracy. You're good.
I still don't know if that's an insult, but that's fine.
No, I was a big fan of Dick Tracy when I was a child. It was I think Al Pacino played the bad guy in the movies for Dick Tracy. I think it was Warren Beatty who played the good guy. Moving on to quite a surprising stat here. Callum McGregor wins his first ever Player of the Month award. I wanted to get your thoughts upon that. It's ridiculous. He scored a couple of goals and he gets Player of the Month, the first time in his career in Scotland. And I guess the bigger theme is underappreciated players. So first off, what's your thoughts on that? Is it just silly politics? Silly politics about these awards? Are they meaningless at the end of the day? However, they can be good for a player's confidence. Callum McGregor clearly doesn't need it because he's reached the top of his profession in Scottish football. But the bigger theme is underappreciated players. And I guess maybe we can get your thoughts, my thoughts, and the thoughts of the commenters tonight about underappreciated players who have represented Celtic.
I don't know why, but it brought me back to, not brought me back, but I remember my granda having the conversation with me before, that back in the day, the likes of the Celtic Lisbon team and teams of that nature that followed, like the Scottish quota, and that team didn't really get Scottish caps for whatever reason. And this Callum McGregor thing feels kind of similar. This is an award multiple players throughout the season get, and Callum McGregor has been without doubt one of the best players in the best player in the Scottish League for absolute years. If we're talking about midfielders and things of that nature, so it is surprising. I think Rodgers had a wee joke about it, saying to the reporter he better have got his facts right because he was surprised at that stat. But I don't think these things would bother Callum McGregor in the slightest. He just gets on with his job. He's never below a 7 out of 10 every week. He's the captain of our club, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being, as Rodgers would always say. Rodgers loves him, by the way. See, when people talk about Callum McGregor or Rodgers, his face just lights up, smiling and he's gloating and he's singing his praises to the highest. And I'm the same. Doesn't matter if you win 1 or 0 or 20 or 30 of these players. Fuck me. If you look back at the list of players who've won that award and you look at where they are now, I would say 70% of them are probably fucking, I don't know, part-timers now. Do you know what I mean? These awards are fleeting. They don't really mean much, but it is surprising that he hasn't won it. And sure, was there not some crazy stat as well about Rodgers didn't win a Manager of the Month award for ages when he was back at Celtic, and he finally got one or something towards the end of the season. So this has been known to happen. So yeah, water off a duck's back. They are captain.
If I was to ask you then about underappreciated Celtic players, if I was to kind of reflect, I find it difficult. But maybe if you were to narrow it down to an era, so maybe for you, the first era that you really appreciated were the Martin O'Neill era. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you say? Who would you say was like a star performer for Celtic, but underappreciated? I felt maybe Jackie McNamara. He eventually became a captain under Martin O'Neill, but he had to go on the bench for a period of time under Martin O'Neill. He had to kind of sit in the wings and wait for some more heralded players to kind of take the plaudits. I also think that if Paul Lambert hadn't won the Champions League with Borussia Dortmund, it gave him gravitas. But I think if he came into Celtic, he came into Celtic, Motherwell player, went off to Germany for a period of time, then came into Celtic and did what he did, I think he would have been an underappreciated Celtic player. But I think because he won the Champions League with Dortmund, I think that gave him gravitas, and it gave him a reputation, and people said, oh, fucking Paul Lambert. But I think he would have been underappreciated if he never had that gravitas and that kind of reputation, that CV. So maybe for me in the Martin O'Neill era, probably Jackie McNamara, maybe to an extent Neil Lennon. But again, Neil Lennon made his own plaudits, didn't make his own plaudits. The plaudits sometimes chased him. It wasn't his own generating that. But Neil Lennon kind of, it came towards him. He didn't generate it. But maybe Jackie McNamara would take the crown for me as an underappreciated player at Martin O'Neill era. Would you have somebody different? Would you agree, disagree?
Well, I would agree, because I think the likes of Jackie McNamara and Paul Lambert, as you called them, really go. Yeah, you did. That wings really take that box wings getting to your loaf. But them types of players go around their business quite quietly and effectively, and a bit like Calmac in an instance, they do the job with no fuss. If I'm thinking about other players in that team, I think again maybe Jos Valgaeren, being stood alongside the likes of Baldy and Mialby. They got the recognition. Maybe not star performers, but I think for players who made a good impact on the team, Steve Guppy, Bobby Petta to an extent, because he was in the round team and in the kind of early stages. Yeah, 100% smell the glove. Who else? Possibly John Hartson. Yes, possibly John Hartson. Would you not say? We're appreciating them more now, obviously, as time's passed, but maybe like in the shadow of, like we're talking about Jos Valgaeren in the shadow of Mialby and Bobo, maybe Hartson felt that from Sutton and Larson to an extent. So maybe there's quite a few players that you could say are underappreciated in that time under O'Neill.
Yeah. What about if we were to kind of fast forward to, right? So we've got Gordon Strachan then, the Gordon Strachan era. He got to the, correct me if I'm wrong, Champions League last 16 was it twice. Neil Lennon did it once. Strachan did it twice. So that's a good era. Who do you think was an underappreciated player of the Strachan era?
Skippy.
Scott McDonald. Do you think at all that is a really good Skippy was brilliant, obviously kind of tainted with the fact that with the Helicopter Sunday thing, he might never ever shake that off, but I thought he was a brilliant player for Celtic. What about the centre back pairing of Steve McManus and Gary Caldwell? They were kind of much maligned, but they were still the centre back pairing for a lot of domestic success and getting into the European stages. Do you think that they were ever underappreciated, those two players? We kind of laugh about it, but they were kind of more than the sum of their parts. That's what my meaning is.
Yeah, no, I get you. Underappreciated, yes. McManus was the captain then, but I think that was who there was to pick from at that time. Gary Caldwell, I like Gary Caldwell, but until he kept doing that fucking Franz Beckenbauer shite and trying to make 70-yard passes all the time and give the ball away so continuously, he really started to annoy me towards the end. But I do get that. I think this is a good point. Smell the glove. Paul Telfer was like 42 years old, but gave us all for the team, and he done quite well. There is a lot of players when you think back to it. I mean, Del Boy's talking about possibly let me bring it up, Barry Robson as well. So I mean, in them teams, we're talking about the potential trio of the new Celtic midfield being industrious. I mean, that's exactly what the likes of Robson and Hartley, and that's what they would have been. That was their game, being industrious, getting about the pitch, making themselves a nuisance for the opposition, putting tackles in and making markers on opposition players. So, and they had Strachan done really well with the squad he had, because there was a lot of downsizing after the O'Neill era, and Strachan had to deal with that. So I would even throw in maybe Jan Vinegar Hasselink. I would maybe be tempted to throw him in. I loved him. I fucking loved him. Yeah, who was the keeper? No, who was the keeper? I'm talking about Bhoys. He was very much appreciated hero. But yeah, I think who?
Sorry, I had verbal diarrhea. I said Craig Gordon there.
Ross would have spunked his trousers if you said that to him. He loves Craig Gordon. But yeah, there's a lot of underappreciated players throughout the years.
And this might be, just kind of finishing up on it, this might be like too close to call, too recent to talk about. But if we were to, we're probably not in a position yet to analyse the Ange era. 2 years, but we're still like kind of enjoying the dividends of that success with like the likes of Kyogo and Dyson Maida and Hatate, and the general work ethic of like we never die, we never stop. But it's probably too close to reflect upon it. But if you were to make an attempt, the Ange era, who would you say would be the underappreciated player of that? There were certainly players who had the plaudits, like Jota, Kyogo. Who would you say
one
was
player? One player comes to my mind like that. Carl Starfelt.
Starfelt.
I think he was brilliant. Again, he had his downsides, but I mean, I think he's a much better player than Liam Scales. Who else?
And to the people in comments, who do you think was the underappreciated player from Ange? Starfelt is a controversial one. I thought his recovery pace, Starfelt's recovery pace was brilliant. Scales doesn't have that. But again, Starfelt wasn't a left-sided player, which made him look awkward. It wasn't his fault that he had to play in that position. But that's a great suggestion for Stephen. Does anybody in the comments have MD that they can?
A lot of Moy, yeah. A lot of shouts for Aaron Moy, yeah.
James from our podcast would say that Moy was brilliant for 6 weeks. I think that's a wee bit harsh. Moy was fantastic in a lot of games for Celtic, but over the course, a wee bit inconsistent, but a brilliant player on his day.
I think the reason why I'm struggling with this, because a lot of them players are still playing. Joe Hart. It can't be Ralston's still about. You can't really say he's underappreciated when he's still at the club.
I felt Ralston had his best time under Ange, though.
I get that. Yeah. Joe Hart maybe, but then again, his loving is always continuing at the minute, and rightly so. You could maybe again controversial, and I look, take all the politics out of it, but Leo Abada.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate one. I think he was underappreciated. He had that. His stats were brilliant, but you weren't too sure about him in the big games. Even though sometimes he did deliver in the big games, and whenever he left, we're like, fuck it, he's gone. We weren't gutted like Jota left, you know.
Well, here's one for you, Gav. To round it off, right? In your lifetime, you had to pick one most underappreciated Celtic player in your lifetime. Who would it be?
Underappreciated in my lifetime. Right. Well, I need to start off with the Tommy Burns era and work my way up. This could be a bit of a thinking process, and it might not be entertaining for a podcast. I need to kind of do some downloading right now.
We'll move on. We'll move on to the Hearts game and come back to the end. Do you want to do that? Or
yeah, okay. It's difficult to think about it though if I'm thinking about something else. I'm only a guy at the end of the day. I can't multitask. I have my limitations.
You can watch something on the screen and I'm only joking. Right. So yes, we're back to domestic action. Why?
Okay.
Go for it.
Mark Reaper. Okay. Brilliant centre back. And he get injured and kind of it stalled his career. But he was an international. He was fantastic for Celtic. And I think even Henrik Larsson said that he was one of the best centre backs that he played with. Mark Reaper was an underappreciated player. And he kind of like tailed off just as Martin Neil took over. He was a brilliant centre back, tough as nails, good with the ball. Another player who was only on loan for Celtic for a short period of time, Ramon Vega, on loan from Tottenham Hotspur, but he strolled it. He totally strolled it, and it was a wee bit annoying because he kind of knew that he strolled it, and then he went away back down to England to sign for a shite club where he could have made the name for himself at Parkhead. But I'd probably go for Mark Reaper, an underappreciated player. And I was gutted whenever he left, but he never left because we didn't appreciate him. He just left because he was injured and he had to call time in his career.
Look how quick you got to that conclusion. Just not even 2 minutes went by, Gav. Not even 2 minutes. We could have just sat here and looked at each other. It would have been quite blissful. But yes, we are back to domestic action, and I appreciate the podcast took a lot of turns this evening. But look, it's the fun of it. We'll have a laugh, and when Gav's on the red wine, you know you're in for a treat. But we're facing Hearts. Stephen Naismith, I don't think they've won yet this season. I believe they're still winless. I believe 5 or 6 games under pressure from the support. Baffles me because you look at the recruitment. They've signed a few international players, Costa Rican internationals. They've Kenneth Fargas up front. Danda, they got him on a free from Ross County, a good playmaker. Blair Spittle, who had over 20 goal contributions for Motherwell last season. Kyle Rolls, international for Australia. Multitude of players that should be doing better, but Stephen Naismith. But I think this is the issue with clubs who don't maybe push the boundaries like the Aberdeen do and get a coach in to actually improve the players that they have. What they rather do is appoint a club legend who has 0 experience, and this is the shit to get served up, and rightly so. But yes, confident getting into the game. Confident for this game. Looking forward to this game. I will be in a pub in Belfast with a cohort of the Endless Celts Podcast. Anthony, Franny, Willie, Ryan, and a few other additional people. And amongst that, we're going to take in the game in Belfast with a few pints, and I'm sure that will be enjoyable. But what is your feeling going into this game against the miniature version of Sevco?
Who's Ryan?
Oh, he's a mate of mine, but he was a part of it way back when.
Okay. Look, Hearts have had a terrible start to the season, but we've had that international break, and I think it'd be foolish. Thinking about it from a Brendan Rodgers point of view, or from a player's point of view, I think you need to remember the Hearts that we played at the end of last season. If you remember going into the last 6 after the split, and we beat Hearts at Parkhead, and it was an emotional game. Like, people were cheering every kick because it was at the start of the split, and Hearts were doing well. And that silly idiot centre back Shankland, he was doing really well at that part of the season. He was still deemed as a threat, and basically Hearts were deemed as a threat, and we knew that we had to be squeaky clean in the last in the post split in the last 6 games, in the last 5 games, I mean, and we won the game comprehensively at Parkhead. But every kick, every challenge, every assist, throw in, free kick, goal was cheered by the entire crowd. It was an emotionally charged game. Going from there to now, Hearts, they've played 4 games and they've drawn 1. They've got 1 point on the board. They've drawn, they've lost, they've lost, they've lost. It looks terrible, but I think from a professional point of view, we need to expect the worst from Hearts. We need to respect their capabilities. I think that Celtic have had a really, really good start to the season, but I also need to say that we've had a very favourable start to the season in terms of who we've played. Look, Hearts are. I hate them. I love beating them. I love beating them. But if we go into this game resting on our laurels to say Hearts are second bottom of the table, same points with Kilmarnock, which is equally baffling. Hearts and Kilmarnock at the bottom of the table with 1 point each. If you go into this game thinking it's going to be a walkover, then I think it's ridiculous from a professional point of view. You need to expect the worst. Talking about like the way that John Collins would talk about like the passing, the tempo, the movement and stuff like that. We need to implement all this. We need to get back. Like the international break is over. We need to get back in our A game. And we need to push on the advantage that we've got over the rotten mob. We want to win the league. Let's do it as quickly as possible. We've got Hearts probably at a weak point. But if you think that they're going to be weak, then you're daft. As I said, prepare for the worst. Maybe they've regrouped in the international break. Maybe they're making one last hurrah at Parkhead, and that might spur them on if they get a result against us. We need to put in the effort. I think we'll win, obviously, in paper. Obviously, in paper, we're going to beat them. But you need to put in the effort. You need to run the hard yards, and then the quality will come. We've got the squad. We don't have any major injuries. I believe that even Alistair Johnson trained with the first team there. And Brendan Rodgers said that Jesse March only brought him back out of precaution. So apparently there's nothing really to worry about. I've got full confidence, but that means I've got full confidence that Brendan Rodgers will gear the team up, that they need to win. They need to play 100%. As long as we do that, we'll beat them. So that's where I am.
Well, talking about the hard yards and no fresh injury concerns in the team, give me your score and lineup prediction, Gav.
Okay, well, score, I'm a fucking liability with that. Score doesn't matter with me, okay? Let's just say 3-0. Yeah, we'll go for 3-0. So, Schmeichel, Greg Taylor, Liam Scales, yes. Cam Carter-Vickers, and I would imagine if he's proven the injury test, then Alistair Johnson. In the midfield, we'd be interesting, but yeah, Bernardo, you can't drop Bernardo. Cal McGregor and Reo Hatate, yeah. Obviously, I'm not a man of risk, you know. I can't predict at this moment that one of them is going to be dropped automatically for a 20-year-old who has got great potential, but unless he's ripping it up in training, he's been away by Belgium right now. He needs to come back into our training environment and start ripping it up. And until he does that, then you can't drop Bernardo, Hatate, or Callum McGregor. So that's the midfield, okay? The settle 3, as we know. And up front, assuming no injuries, Idah. As much as I love Forrest, I think it'll be Kuhn. And up front, Kyogo. So status quo. That's it. That's it. No risks.
For myself, I'm going to go. Now, I'm basing this game off the precautionary tail that AJ got took away from international duty because he felt the tight hamstring. So bear with me. So I'm going to go Schmeichel and goals. My right back will be Alex Valle. My 2 centre halves will be Carter. The reason I say right back Alex Valle is because he played right back in pre-season for Barcelona and got 2 assists against Real Madrid and possibly could deputise tomorrow for, and especially because it's a home game, it might be beneficial to put him in to see what he can do. I know he's at left back by trade, Gav. You're going to get all tactical on me, But this is what happened the pre-season with Barcelona.
I was about to congratulate you. You're obviously a man who's done his homework. You know that Vi has done a pre-season at right back, and you're giving me stats right now to justify your response, mate. Kudos to you. Kudos to you.
And then the two centre backs will be Carter Vickers, Liam Scales, left back Greg Taylor. The midfield trio, I would go Kalmack, Bernardo, and Arnie Engels. Up top, I would go Nicholas Kuhn on the right, Kyogo for the middle, and Dyson Maeda off the left. And my score will be 5-0 to Celtic, Gav. Now, before we wrap up tonight's podcast, anything else?
You've dropped Hatate. What did he do to offend you?
It's just feeling like it. I think Rodgers won't be, as I said, we spoke about this earlier. I don't think he'll be afraid to make that call. If you look, you don't break the record fee for him to sit in the bench. That's my thinking of this. You do not break a record fee, and I know he has to earn the jersey, but the only way he's going to earn the jersey if he gets the chance to earn it. And maybe Rio was feeling a wee bit, down after the Japan thing, and maybe Rodgers wants to take him out of the environment of football just to bet him back in easily, or maybe Rodgers wants to throw Reo Hatate back in. I'm just second guessing the manager here, but I would try Arnie Engels in there, and then you could get him maybe 50 to 60 minutes, and then he's in for Europe. I think that's what he's been brought in for. So,
from Paul McFarlane, Stephen dropped Hatate. Did I hear that right, Gavin? Can I ask you one final thing? Me and James had an interesting kind of to and fro about the merits of the signing of Liam McCowan.
Luke McCowan.
Liam. Luke. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I need people to correct me. Thank you for doing that. Now, I'll leave my case that there's a lot of merit to the signing. James was less enthusiastic. Maybe didn't appreciate. Or maybe I'm overestimating the type of player that he was. Maybe James was more realistic. He could be right. I could be wrong. Where do you lie on the matter about McCowan? I kind of compared it to the ilk of a Barry Robson, Paul Hartley. I didn't believe it was a flash in the pan. He's like 26, 27. For me, he's not like a 21-year-old winger where he had a good season and now he's signed for Celtic and he might be shite. For me, he's grafted up to this stage, and he's an industrious player. He's got a bit of quality attacking. I feel that it's a low risk, high reward, £1 million signing. He's going to slot into that role. I think he's going to be a far more productive player than a Turnbull, who was much maligned for his lack of industry. But maybe I'm being too passionate. I'm being too sentimental because he's a Celtic fan. Am I wrong? Is James right? Where do you stand in it?
Well, if I can remember back to the podcast we done on that Friday, you visibly cheered and let out a groan in celebration to Luke McCowan being confirmed live on the podcast, which was quite good. But I think you're right. He's a seasoned pro. He's grafted from Ayr to Dundee. Got through the leagues with Dundee. Had a good season in the SPFL that season as their club captain. I think maybe not the impact in terms of starting games, but we talk about leaders throughout the team. I think maybe in a year's time he might fall into that kind of Greg Taylor category where he gets it and he's a good, like, the bed new players in. He's good around the dressing room. He has that kind of positive influence in the environment. That's key in a professional working space. You need them people to keep you grounded and keep you motivated. So yeah, I think he'll prove good in that instance. In terms of the team, I think he will get his opportunities. I don't think he's going to have the door shut on him. I think it was quite telling that Rodgers left out Thiago Home from the substitutes and put Luke McCowan straight in. So obviously, Thiago Home doesn't really hold much merit in Rodgers' plans, and he will probably be next out the door in January if he gets a loan move or a permanent move. Again, that's disappointing because I do think there is a player in there. But Luke McCowan doesn't excite me, doesn't get me down. I'm just in between. I think in scale of you're up here, James is down here, I'm in the middle. I understand the values he'll bring to the team. I understand his position in the team. I understand his contribution going forward. Squad player coming into impact games and maybe start the odd games on the odd occasion, like the Falkirk game next week in the League Cup. And that's not being disrespectful, but that's the level of player I hold Luke McCann to. Maybe he will surprise us all and be a starter, be a first choice over Bernardo, Engels, Reo Hatate. You said he's a grafter. Let's see if he can graft his way to the top of our midfield pecking order. Obviously, with Cal McGregor, it'd be an interesting battle throughout the season, I think, for these two positions outside of McGregor's nailed on jersey. So I'm excited going forward. I think we've got a lot of squad depth. I think, and there was a lot of talk about Alvin Sanchez and Bogusz from the MLS to come in alongside Engels, but that was totally unrealistic. The Celtic board aren't going to pay £11 million for one player and then £8 million for another midfield player, so there had to be a compromise, I think, in between that. So yeah, I think it'll be a squad player going forward.
And did I ever ask you your best Celtic fullback out of the kind of the gauntlet?
We did that quick fire, I think, didn't we?
Obviously not by your blank face.
No, we did the quick fire, but
no, Stephen, it's not a one-word answer. It is a journey.
Did you not do the quick fire with me? No, who did you do that with?
I think I started it with either Franny or Ross.
Okay. Right, go ahead. Do what you want to do.
Okay. Well, that's up. That's what you're going to do with the Endless Celts this weekend. But thankfully, I am staying here. Right, okay. We're going to start with Andreas Henkel, and I'm going to throw some names at you. And it's who you prefer as a fullback, career-wise, Celtic-wise. I want to start off with Andreas Henkel. Andreas Henkel or Chaduri?
Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or Enrico Annone?
Again, Henkel, because I've never really seen Annone play, so it'll have to be Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or Paul Caddis?
Andreas Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or Anthony Ralston?
Andreas Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or what's the story, Bola and goalie?
Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or Adam Matthews?
Oh, fuck. Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or Lee Naylor?
Henkel.
Andreas Henkel or Mark Wilson, who scalped the hunt?
Fucking Matt on the goal line as well. Fuck.
Majestic.
Was that Papic, wasn't it? He hit in the head with the ball?
Papic? Yeah. I almost gave him a good hairdo.
Andreas Henkel.
Okay, Andreas Henkel or Tosh McKinley? Maybe.
Andreas Henkel.
Okay. Andreas Henkel or Mo Kamara?
And fuck me, Andreas Henkel. This is mental.
Andreas Henkel or Paul Telfer?
Andreas Henkel.
Let's mix it up. Andreas Henkel or Jeremy Frimpong?
Jeremy Frimpong.
Thank fuck, we've moved on. Jeremy Frimpong or Danny Fox?
Jeremy Frimpong.
Jeremy Frimpong or Greg Taylor?
Frimpong.
Jeremy Frimpong or Didier Agat, who was an underappreciated player, according to you?
Well, you said it. I agreed. They're both so similar. That's what's making me tough. They're both.
You're so racist.
What? I mean, playing wise. Didier Agat. I'll give that one to Agat.
Didier Agat or Jackie McNamara?
Fuck. Didier Agat.
Didier Agat or Edson Braafheid, the World Cup finalist?
Didier Agat.
Didier Agat or Momo Salah?
Actually, really like Momo Salah. He could have fell under the underappreciated category. Didier Agat.
Didier Agat or Mikel Lustig?
Ah. Ah. Give it to me again.
That's what you'll be seeing this weekend. So Didier Agat or Mikel Lustig?
Lustig.
Mikel Lustig or Stefan Mahe?
Lustig.
Mikel Lustig or Hatem El Hamed?
Hatem El Hamed was a genuinely good athlete and player, but just didn't really work out towards the end. Lustig.
Mikel Lustig or Charlie Mulgrew?
Lustig.
Mikel Lustig or Emilio Izagiri?
Fuck.
The anguish upon his face.
Look, I want to give the reason for this. Emilio Izagiri, up until his horrific injury, was unplayable, fantastic. But if we're going longevity, consistency over the years, has to be Lustig.
Okay, Mikel Lustig or Tom Boyd, and he did mention longevity.
Mikel Lustig.
Mikel Lustig or Jean-Joel Pierre Doumbé.
Famous for the Scottish Cup winner, that most boring ever game against Dunfermline. 2008, wasn't it? Why am I taking so long? Lustig? What the fuck?
Mikel Lustig or Alistair Johnson.
Alistair Johnson.
Alistair Johnson or Jeremy Toljan. Toljan.
AJ, all day.
Toljan, the one with the lion without the heart, wasn't he? From the Wizard of Oz. Toljan without the heart. Okay, so who was your last call there? Was it Alistair Johnson over Mikel Lustig?
Yeah, AJ. Yeah.
Okay. AJ or Kieran Tierney?
Fucking dick. KT.
Kieran Tierney. And that concludes it. Kieran Tierney is the winner, the last man standing.
I enjoyed that. Some of them decisions were really tough because Emilio Izagiri one was probably the toughest because he was unbelievable until he got that injury at Motherwell. Remember when I think he broke his ankle or something happened like that, and then after he just wasn't the same. And when he came back a second time, he was even worse, if that was even humanly possible. But he did hit a really bad downward spiral towards the end of his career. But Gav, that kind of, we've done a cracking job there tonight, and the comments have been fantastic. We're 2 hours, 18 minutes in. Appreciate every single one of you who's have stayed with us. Like and subscribe, share with everybody if you can. That would be great for us as a podcast. But Gav, have you enjoyed tonight?
No, I really have, Stephen. It's been fantastic. Well, at 2 hours, 20 minutes in. Obviously, it was just myself and you. Normally, we do a podcast with like 3 people, but I think we've covered a lot of ground with just the 2 of us. It's been fantastic. I am a little bit jealous that I've not been invited to your pad in Belfast. Obviously, we know who your favourites are on the podcast.
Yeah.
I know that I'm still going through my probation period in the Endless Celts, and I need to do more. I need to obviously up my game to get an invitation to the North of Ireland. I'll do what I can to bring more to the table for the podcast. And I enjoy working with you guys. If I'm not doing what I can, then can I just let requests, let feedback about what I can do more? Like Stephen, I thought we had good rapport. I don't
rapport with Lambert. We had Lambert and rapport.
It's difficult to have rapport when you've got cheap red wine here. I thought we got on, but obviously, like there's room for improvement, and you've got your favourites. Look, I will try to do better. I will try to do better for this podcast and for the viewers. and we'll see where it gets me. If I get an invitation to the north of Ireland at some point. But look, it's been a pleasure. Talking to you. We've covered a lot. Looking forward to the weekend. I just want to be your friend. That's all.
You are my friend, you big fucking soppy hole. Drink your red wine in a box and, you know, have fun with it. Don't be crying on the podcast. We'll go through your performance review next week, and we'll see what we can improve on, and we'll take it from there, Gav, as they say. But no, genuinely, I appreciate all the birthday wishes. I'm looking forward to a great weekend. Everyone on the Endless Celts podcast is invited. You all know that. Do you know what I mean? It's not it's public news that we're all mates as well. So looking forward to a good weekend, and pleasure speaking to you, Gav. And go ahead, buddy.
Will there be photographs of the weekends?
Mm-hmm. There'll be photographs and videos, and possibly a lot more that won't be shared apart from our chat. That's it. But to everyone, let's hope to celebrate a great win tomorrow against the Jam Tarts. And again, appreciate all the birthday wishes. And until Monday, when we hopefully look back on a great weekend and a great result, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.
Good night.